Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Orochimaru silently grabbed Jiraiya by the collar and yanked him back. TCH. Jiraiya clicked his tongue in annoyance, only to turn his head and see a row of warning glares. From Orochimaru, Hidden Mist Village, and, furthest to the right, Nyan Uchiha. The gaze was icy, as if it could dismember him into 8 pieces. He shrank his neck sheepishly, recalling some rather unpleasant memories. Nice to meet you, I'm Tsunade. My favorite foods are tender chicken and steak. I hate sweets. And don't let my appearance fool you, I'm actually a medical ninja. Hello, little Tsunade. I've heard so much about you. Nori took Tsunade's hand with a gentle smile. This sister didn't call me princess like everyone else. Tsunade exclaimed with delight, enthusiastically hugging Nori's slender waist. I like this sister. Nori gently patted Tsunade's head, pressing the little girl's face against her chest. I like you too, you know. Did you know you share the same birthday as Hidden Mist Village? Thus, the reconnaissance team, led by Jonin Nari Uchiha and consisting of Gain and Hidden Mist Village Uchiha, the young Sannin, and the mysteriously skilled Nyan Uchiha, set out on their journey toward Hell Valley. Chapter 21, Hell Valley. The sky was gloomy, with dark crimson clouds shrouding the heavens, transforming the sunlight into a bloody hue. The barren wasteland stretched endlessly, resembling a massive slab of flesh lying within the canyon when viewed from afar. This was Hell Valley. The canyon, spanning dozens of miles, was sealed within an enormous barrier. A Genjutsu barrier unique to the Uchiha clan. From the inside, it was utterly impossible to break, and those who approached the barrier would be enveloped in mist, losing consciousness. The lightly affected would become dazed and confused, while the severely affected would be reduced to a vegetative state. With this barrier, the Uchiha had maintained absolute control over the Chinoy clan for decades. According to intelligence reports, the Uchiha squad originally tasked with guarding the barrier had mysteriously lost contact 3 months ago. The squad sent to relieve them had also vanished without a trace. In other words, for 3 whole months, no one had known what was happening here. When Nari Uchiha and his group arrived at the canyon, the sight before them sent chills down their spines. The 4-symbol seal that had been maintained for decades had vanished. This meant the Chinoy clan had broken free from their imprisonment. Yet strangely, when the team investigated the perimeter of the Uchiha encampment near the barrier, they found no signs of destruction. Aside from the Uchiha members who had mysteriously disappeared, everything remained normal. Logically speaking, after being imprisoned by us for so long, their first act upon escaping should have been to eliminate all the guards. Kirito Uchiha frowned. Yet they restrained themselves from attacking? It's also possible they only killed people without damaging any property. Jiraiya said coolly, crossing his arms. Orochimaru shook his head. Impossible. Though I'm not familiar with the Chinoy clan's methods, when enemies meet, losing rationality is normal. Who would have the presence of mind to only kill people without destroying anything? I've checked the records. The Chinoy clan possesses a Jujutsu Kekkei Genkai called Ketsuri Ugen that excels at blood manipulation and creating human bombs through Genjutsu. Such explosive combat methods would hardly leave no traces. Tsunade remarked, stroking her smooth chin. Nyan Uchiha remained silent. Being the youngest and least experienced here, he nonetheless stood with his hands clasped behind his back, putting on an air of maturity. I believe our best course of action is to return to the village immediately and report the Chinoy clan's escape to our teacher. Tsunade offered a highly rational suggestion. Well, Kirito hesitated. I think we should first verify the actual situation before reporting back. What if? Just what if? The circumstances aren't as we imagined? Are you kidding? The barrier's already gone. What more investigation do we need? Jiraiya was the first to object, winking suggestively at Kirito. You're not trying to buy time because you're afraid the Uchiha clan will be held accountable, are you? Orochimaru placed a hand on his shoulder. Jiraiya, no one here is shirking responsibility. There's no need to speak so harshly. At this moment, Nyan turned to Naori and said, Sister Naori, we'll follow your lead. Just tell us what to do. Naori's delicate brows furrowed slightly as she pondered for a moment before exhaling softly. Everyone, follow me into the valley. Make sure not to leave my line of sight. Eh? Seriously? What if there are still remnants of enemy troops in the valley? We'd be like turtles in a jar. Jiraiya doubted he'd heard correctly. You said it yourself, they're just remnants. It's not like we can't handle them. Nyan said quietly. Besides, I trust Sister Naori will protect us all. That makes some sense. Maybe staying outside would be even more dangerous. Tsunade brushed her hair aside and walked over to Naori. Indeed. If the valley is empty, it would confirm the Chinoy escape incident. And if there are people inside, we can gather some intelligence. Orochimaru nodded in agreement. Naturally, I'll listen to my sister. Kirito said. Thus, under the leadership of Naori Uchiha, the group stepped into the former boundary of the barrier and entered the canyon. The air inside the valley was heavy, with a faint scent of blood permeating every corner. Even a shallow breath would cause physical discomfort. It was hard to imagine that the Chinoy clan had lived here for decades. Behind the mountains lay a grove of crimson maple trees. Though the environmental conditions were harsh, it still harbored some game. Therefore, aside from their self-sufficient valley fields, they also hunted in the mountains for sustenance. After such a long time, they had already built a small settlement here. The houses were orderly arranged, row upon row, blending with the terrain of the valley to form simple streets. However, the streets were completely deserted at this moment, appearing extremely desolate. I say, we should just go back. We've already confirmed there's no one here. This place looks creepier the more I look at it. Jiraiya whispered as he tiptoed at the rear. A cold wind blew, making him shrink his neck. Since we're already here, let's search the area before leaving. Nyan spoke up. TCH, even a kid has more courage than you, Jiraiya. Tsunade shot Jiraiya a glance, her tone laced with disdain. He just doesn't know the severity of the situation. Jiraiya argued. I looked into it before coming. The Chinoy's methods are extremely cruel. Even ninja can easily fall victim to them. When it comes to understanding the Chinoy clan, we Uchiha should know better than anyone. Nyan retorted lightly. I smell something peculiar. Orochimaru suddenly remarked. No kidding. That metallic stench is the smell of blood. Jiraiya grumbled. No, it's the scent of a conspiracy. Orochimaru frowned. The clan members disappearing and the barrier vanishing. The timing is far too suspicious. What do you mean? Logically, if they lost control of Hell Valley 3 months ago, the Chinoy clan should have sought revenge against the village by now. At the very least, we should have heard some rumors of their activities in the shinobi world. Given this clan's extremist nature, they would never quietly endure such humiliation. Orochimaru stroked his chin. I have an unsettling theory. The barrier likely disappeared today. Damn, don't scare me like that. It really feels like they're coming straight for us. Jiraiya exclaimed nervously. Walking at the forefront, Naori let out a soft sigh. What Orochimaru had realized, she had naturally considered before even entering the valley. She had anticipated that this clan leader might set a trap for them, she just didn't know how deep the pit would be or how insane the trap might become. If he was truly willing to unleash the Chinoy clan just to secure his own position, then this approach would be utterly foolish. What exactly is going on? Doesn't he worry about being sanctioned by the village? Or does he have the confidence to face everything? This clan leader was originally a very rational person, but ever since he won the position of leader, he's become arrogant and self-important, acting as if nothing matters to him anymore. In his eyes. Naori bit her lip, recalling a clue that couldn't be ignored. Every victor of the death matches seemed to have lost an eye, becoming pale and hollow, devoid of any light. Was this some kind of price? Or perhaps some unknown secret technique? Chapter 22, The Mad Conspiracy. Chiri took a deep breath, feeling compelled to investigate the secret chamber of the Naka Shrine. The successive changes in clan leadership had thrown the entire Uchiha clan into chaos. The frequency of death matches kept increasing, with each new clan head growing more deranged than the last. If this continued unchecked, more innocent children would inevitably become collateral victims. She made up her mind. If she could return to the village safely this time, she would get to the bottom of it. If it truly was the secret technique causing this burden, then it had to be stopped. Otherwise, the Uchiha clan would have no future. The group moved swiftly and soon arrived at the central area of the Chinoy clan's territory. The scent of blood grew even thicker, and amidst the rugged, fissured ground, a pool of crimson blood flowed like a sinister spring from the underworld. I've heard the Ketsuri Ugan can manipulate blood in battle. It seems the Chinoy clan never gave up honing their jujutsu all these years. Tsubaki Maya remarked. This proves they're constantly thinking about revenge. Disappearing completely is impossible. Orochimaru's frown deepened. Shh, quiet. Nyan suddenly halted, crouching low as his right hand slipped into his sleeve, silently grasping a kunai like a wolf ready to pounce. There's someone in the house to the left. Naori reacted swiftly, immediately shielding everyone behind her as she fixed a stern gaze toward the inn on the left side of the street, standing ready for battle. You're a sensory ninja? Tsunade asked with surprise. You could say that. Nyan nodded slightly. Naori turned her head and asked. Can you sense the exact number of people? 7 people, 5 men and 2 women. Their soul strength is average, but one man stands out. Almost on par with Sister Naori. Nyan reported succinctly. Also, there's no need to go further. My sensory range covers this entire valley from here. Aside from the room ahead, there's no one else. He added. Can you confirm this? Naori asked with grave seriousness, her demeanor now fully shifted into meticulous work mode. Unless they possess some secret technique to conceal souls, nothing can evade my perception. That will do. Naori steadied her mind, her slender hand gripping the hilt as she prepared for battle. 6 against 7. The odds aren't in our favor. Jiraiya cracked his knuckles eagerly. But since they're all gathered in one place, this is the perfect chance to wipe them out in one go. However, Nyan hesitated before speaking. These people don't seem to be shinobi, nor do they appear to have any intention of fighting. At that very moment, his sensory perception told him that the people inside the inn were simply going about their normal activities. Some eating, others drinking, and a few even sleeping in the guest rooms on the second floor. Little Tsunade, you 3 should stay here for now. Naori pondered for a moment before saying. Hide yourselves and be ready to support us at any time. Huh? But weren't we told not to leave your sight? Jiraiya asked in confusion. The 3 Naori was referring to were none other than the 3 Hokage's personal disciples. Orochimaru explained. Now that the enemy's situation is clear, there shouldn't be any threats outside. Sister Naori probably wants to scout the situation to verify the intelligence, since we still don't know where the other members of the Chinoite clan have gone. Right. Tsubaki Maya nodded. If there's any danger, the 3 of us Uchiha can hold out for a while. But. Enough with the buts. Tsunade grabbed Jiraiya's arm, then turned to give Naori a reassuring smile. Don't worry, sis. I'll keep this idiot in check. Thanks for your hard work. If something happens to us, you 3 must flee back to the village immediately. No hesitation. Huh? Tsunade's eyes widened instantly. Naori smiled gently. Just in case. I mean, only as a last resort. Alright. Orochimaru, you must escape. Tsubaki Maya couldn't help but voice his concern as he looked anxiously at his friend. Don't worry, I won't look back. Orochimaru responded with a faint smile. It's you 2 I'm worried about, don't make me have to avenge you later. Cut it out. Naori nodded, offering a few final instructions before slowly approaching the inn with Nyan and Tsubaki Maya, pushing the door open to enter. Meanwhile, in Hidden Leaf Village. This is what the Uchiha clan has become? Utterly rotten to the core. A clan that should have remained pure has been corrupted by Hidden Leaf Village to this extent, drowning in the whirlpool of power and desire. How utterly disappointing. Indeed, in this world, wherever there is light, there will always be shadows. The very concept of winners inevitably creates losers. The selfish desire to maintain peace leads to war, and hatred is born to protect love. Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Uchiha. Suddenly, a childish voice interrupted a certain man's dark musings. Uncle, your ice cream is ready. In front of the dessert stall, the sunglasses-wearing man froze momentarily before belatedly accepting 2 nearly melted ice cream cones, making way for the little girl behind him. He was about to walk away when, after some thought, he slightly bent forward, his waterfall-like black hair cascading down. He handed one of the ice creams to the little girl, watching as she took it, a cold smile curling at the corners of his lips. Why has Lord Madara been gone for so long? On the second floor of the izakaya, Kamiane and Hikari sat side by side. Compared to Kamiane, who was leisurely admiring the scenery outside the window, Hikari was clearly more worried. Oh, Lord Madara isn't a child, there's nothing to worry about. Kamiane rested his chin on one hand and smiled slightly. Hikari looked exasperated. You're the one who suggested Lord Madara should take a walk, so you should take responsibility. Alright, since it's Our Lady Hikari's request, I suppose I have no choice but to obey. Humphrey, you're being obedient for once. Hikari shyly averted her gaze, using her teacup to hide her flushed cheeks. Kamiane narrowed his eyes slightly, instantly sensing Madara's location, revealing a somewhat surprised smile. At this moment, he had already removed the black blindfold, revealing jade black pupils that shimmered with restrained brilliance, like a clear pond under moonlight reflecting an endless starry sky. Years earlier, he had discovered that the Yang-style genes within his body seemed to have ceased their transformation. Every cell now pulsed with surging vitality, and the power of his eyes had reached its peak. The nearly decade-long fusion of yin and yang had finally entered its final stages. Unfortunately, although his body's evolution continued, the rate of growth had slowed to less than 1% of its original pace. As sluggish as a snail's crawl. Continuing this sealed evolution while suppressing his power now seemed to have lost all meaning. He didn't have old man Madara's patience. So he simply removed his eye patch, allowing his long-sealed eyes to see sunlight once more. Don't worry, Lord Madara has already returned. As soon as the words were spoken, light footsteps echoed from the staircase. Madara Uchiha sat down opposite them with 2 ice cream cones in hand, casually passing one to each of them. Just picked randomly, make do with it. He said nonchalantly. I'm touched. This is my favorite strawberry flavor. Kamiene's eyes lit up slightly. My favorite mint flavor too. Hikari took a small bite, covering her mouth as she chuckled softly. Suddenly, a violent explosion erupted from the distant streets, thick smoke billowing into the air. The faint breeze carried the pungent smell of burning, along with terrified screams. It's an explosion. Damn it, it's a human bomb. Chapter 23, The 5 Rules Inside the Inn at the Blood Pond clan's territory in Hell Valley. The door creaked open slowly, releasing a musty stench of decay. Naori Uchiha's delicate brows furrowed slightly as she wordlessly stepped inside, followed by Hidden Mist Village in Nyan. This was a standard inn, with the entire room dimly lit by candlelight. The aged elm wood floors and worn-out tables and chairs all spoke of the establishment's simplicity. Most importantly, among the 7 individuals that Naori was particularly focused on inside the inn, only 2 showed any reaction when they entered. One was the woman behind the counter, who merely glanced up briefly before losing interest. The other was a shop assistant dressed in coarse linen clothes, who immediately put on a broad smile and hurried forward to greet the 3 newcomers. Welcome, honored guests. Will you be dining or staying with us tonight? Garrido instinctively glanced at Nyan, his heart pounding. According to Nyan, the man before them possessed a soul strength that rivaled even Naori's. Fortunately, the 3 of them had removed their Uchiha clan garments before entering, drawing no unwanted attention. We'll dine. Naori replied calmly, her expression perfectly composed as she led the other 2 to their seats. This table was right by the entrance and faced the hall directly. If things spiraled out of control, they could bolt through the door at a moment's notice. Coming right up. Naori took the menu and casually remarked while ordering. It's rather quiet today, isn't it? Ah, that's just how business goes. Customers come and go. The shop assistant replied with a smile. So, what number customers are we? Naori glanced at him, her delicate eyebrows slightly raised. Well, that's actually hard to answer. The waiter waved his hand, his tone carrying a hint of urgency. Sir, you'd better order first. I can't wait for you to taste our chef's skills. What's the hurry? Naori wasn't having it, leisurely flipping through the menu while her other hand instinctively reached under the table, idly tracing patterns on the underside. Just then, heavy footsteps sounded from upstairs. A burly man with sleepy eyes came down yawning. He glanced around, seemingly searching for the waiter's location, then strode over and plopped down at the table next to the trio. 3 pounds of venison, a dish of pickled mustard greens, and half a pound of rice wine for me. He rubbed his eyes and called out without looking up. Seeing the waiter remain unmoved, he immediately bellowed. Bastard! Can't you hear me speaking? My apologies, honored guest. Our establishment is rather small with only me as the sole attendant. Right now is this gentleman's turn to order. The waiter replied with sweat beading on his forehead, his tone clearly forced. Humphrey, taking forever just to order. The burly man slammed the table, his temper clearly frayed. The hall instantly became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. 2 diners silently stood up and moved away from the burly man's position, coincidentally forming a surrounding formation as they sat around the trio, their dishes also being relocated to their new seats. Naori chose not to confront directly, casually ordering a few dishes instead. The waiter quickly took the menu and handed it to the front desk before shouting into the hall, Mia. Tell the kitchen to hurry up. The woman named Mia nodded coldly before turning and walking behind the curtain. The shop assistant immediately turned around to serve the burly man, occasionally letting out obsequious laughter. Before long, dishes were brought to the table one after another, their colors enticing and aromas mouth-watering. Why did you order so much? Garrido asked with surprise. With her back to the entrance, Naori's delicate face suddenly turned serious. She tapped the table with her slender finger, glanced downward meaningfully, then deliberately knocked over the food container. The siblings spoke volumes. Kirito immediately understood, bending down to retrieve it. While reorganizing the scattered utensils, he stealthily glanced upward and suddenly widened his eyes in shock. There beneath the table, small characters were carved, "Welcome to the 5 Rules Inn. Step inside and the game begins. Rule 1, the silent are eliminated. Rule 2, those who don't eat are eliminated. Rule 3, those who stand up are eliminated. Rule 4, those who fail to follow the sequence of 1 bite meat, 2 bites vegetables, 3 sips drink shall be eliminated." Kirito stiffly picked up his utensils, straightened his posture, his face having already turned deathly pale. Meanwhile, the burly man began feasting heartily, 1 bite of meat, 1 bite of vegetables, 1 sip of wine, thoroughly enjoying himself with unrestrained delight. The hall was dimly lit, filled with the sound of chewing, occasional clinks of bowls and chopsticks, and faint whispers like the buzzing of mosquitoes. Looking at the lavish spread of dishes on the table, Kirito felt nothing but nausea. Across from him, Naori's expression wasn't much better. Clearly, she had already learned about these so-called rules. At that moment, Kirito wanted nothing more than to get up and leave, but he lacked the courage to break the rules. Among the 3 of them, it was the youngest, Nyan Uchiha, who remained the most composed. Propping up his chopsticks, he picked up a piece of meat and popped it into his mouth, his cheeks puffing in and out as he chewed. "Pa!" He spat out, immediately spewing onto the table. He picked up another piece of diced radish with his chopsticks, chewed twice before spitting it out again. Lifting his teacup, he noisily rinsed his mouth before suddenly spraying it onto the burly man sitting beside him. Tui. This scene made Kirin's heart pound wildly with fright, while even Tomoe looked somewhat startled. "Fucking hell, you little brat asking for death?" The burly man flew into a rage, slamming the table as he stood up and grabbed Nyan by the collar in one stride. But as if suddenly remembering something, his face turned deathly pale. Then came a scene that made one's scalp crawl. The man's eyes widened in terror as his flesh began melting unnaturally, like a wax figure scorched by flames, his limbs and torso dissolving inch by inch into the ground. Accompanied by a horrifying sizzling sound, he transformed into a pool of bloody water within mere seconds, seeping through the cracks in the floorboards. Kirito instinctively looked out the window, only to see a stream of blood flowing along the ground's crevices, converging into the central blood pool. Ugh! He uncontrollably retched, nearly falling from his seat, fortunately saved when Nyan grabbed his arm. Now he finally understood how that pool of blood had come to be. Could it be that every member of the Blood Pool clan has dissolved into blood? Only then did he realize that the 2 diners who had gotten up to change seats earlier had completely vanished without a trace. Suppressing their nausea, Kirito and Tomoe reluctantly picked up their chopsticks and sampled the dishes in order. As expected, the flavors were bizarre. Utterly different from ordinary human cuisine. Suddenly, Kirito noticed that Nyan beside him had frozen mid-motion. His eyes bulged violently as he clutched his own throat, foaming at the mouth before convulsing violently and collapsing from his seat. What? Why? Nyan clearly followed the rules. He screamed Nyan's name in terror while bending down, trying to pull Nyan up from the ground, but it was utterly futile. He could only watch helplessly as Nyan melted inch by inch, turning into bloody liquid that seeped into the floorboards. Overwhelming grief drowned him. Suddenly, his casual glance under the table revealed, to his shock, that at the very bottom of the inscribed rules, there was one more line of tiny text. Rule 5, it is forbidden to obey all the above rules. Kirito's entire body turned ice cold as bin-sized sweat droplets rolled down his temples. Kirito, wake up quickly. An urgent call from Naori came from above the table. Kirito's lips trembled as he hurriedly got up. Sister, what should we do? Nyan. Nyan is dead. Kirito, eat your meal now. Kirito, hurry up. Kirito stared at his sister in disbelief, watching as she called out to the empty space beside her as if someone was sitting there. Sister, I'm right here. Kirito shouted. As if hearing his voice, Naori stopped calling out and suddenly turned to look at him. In that instant, Kirito's soul nearly left his body, because the sister before him, that gentle, refined face, had completely transformed into the appearance of the shop assistant, grinning at him merrily with hollow eyes that radiated an overwhelming sense of dread. Chapter 24, Breaking the Ganjutsu. At this very moment, inside the Blood Pool's inn, the woman called Mia tilted her head unnaturally, her footsteps erratic as she approached, suddenly swinging her arm. Whoosh! A rusted kitchen knife slashed horizontally through the air. Naori Uchiha flipped backward like a swallowtail butterfly dancing in the wind, effortlessly dodging the attack while simultaneously drawing her blade in a fluid motion to slit the woman's throat. Yet her opponent showed no reaction. Despite the gushing wound at her throat, the woman remained unfazed, her glowing red eyes dull and vacant. Naori kicked her away, using the momentary distance to sigh in frustration. She turned her head and asked, "Still not awake yet?" "No." Nyan Uchiha's voice came from behind her as he carried the unconscious Kirito Uchiha on his back, panting heavily. "He's still trapped in the Genjutsu." Earlier, the moment the three of them stepped into the room, they had fallen into that shop assistant's illusion technique. Naori instantly realized what was happening and immediately activated her 3 Tomoe Sharingan. In that moment, she discovered with shock that her mental world was being dominated by a pair of blood-red eyes. Those were eyes brimming with bloody aura, blacks clear with horizontal pupils, hanging high in her mental sky like a sun, gazing down upon the land like a deity. Feeling her heart tighten, Naori immediately broke free using the formidable ocular power of her 3 Tomoe Sharingan, regaining control over the chakra flow within her body. The moment her consciousness returned, several zombie-like figures closed in around her. She immediately attempted to retreat, only to find the entire room enveloped in a blood-red barrier, transforming the situation into a complete trap for cornered prey. These people have been completely manipulated by Genjutsu, becoming mere puppets. Their previous independent actions were merely mechanical executions of the caster's commands. They fear no death, unable to perceive pain even when struck in vital areas. With Naori needing to protect her younger brothers behind her, she found herself constrained at every turn, inevitably feeling somewhat restricted. Fortunately, Nyan Uchiha actually broke free from the Genjutsu through sheer willpower, which pleasantly surprised her. She very much wanted to ask how he had accomplished this, as it was the most advanced type of restrictive Genjutsu, one that enhanced its power through established rules. Breaking free through ability rather than ocular power indeed presented considerable difficulty. Nyan pursed his lips slightly. In truth, his ability to break the Genjutsu wasn't entirely his own doing. After all, that reassuring voice in his mind was the real reason he remained so composed throughout. These so-called 5 rules are both killing techniques and loopholes. This is a Genjutsu that manipulates reality by controlling the mind. If you truly follow all the rules completely, your real-world self would become nothing more than a puppet, completely at the caster's mercy. The solution is to both obey the rules and not obey them at the same time. Following this guidance, Nyan immediately gained enlightenment. In the world of illusion, he appeared to speak, yet uttered not a single word. He seemed to eat as promised, yet spat it all out. He appeared to rise, yet fell from his seat. He seemed to follow the rules, yet broke every single one. Sure enough, the moment he tumbled down, he suddenly jolted awake, breaking free from the illusionary world. This Genjutsu is indeed exquisitely designed, though its only flaw is the insufficient ocular power. The voice continued, as if savoring the experience. Nyan silently nodded. Long before entering the valley, a spiritual entity had drifted in with the wind, effortlessly entering his mind and sitting cross-legged within his mental realm. For Nyan, who had already trained in the spiritual transformation technique, he naturally recognized what this was and instantly guessed the identity of the visitor. Under the heavens, who else could be practicing this secret technique alongside him but that senior? Therefore, even when trapped in confinement, he didn't feel the slightest panic. He knew the senior wouldn't harm him. Though this person claimed to be just visiting for leisure, merely looking around casually, Nyan understood clearly, beneath that carefree appearance, the senior was secretly protecting all 3 of them. "Senior, is there any way to break this deadlock?" Nyan asked in his mind, his tone probing. In the spiritual world, Kamien's astral form spread his hands. "Simple. Just find and kill the caster." "I meant, how do we wake Kirito up too?" "Well," Kamien pondered. "Normally, ocular Genjutsu can only be broken by someone else disrupting the target's chakra flow. But this Blood Dragon Eye Genjutsu is special. It requires direct eye contact with a Sharingan to forcibly break through with superior visual prowess. Those with greater skill can even overwrite or reflect the illusion back." "Thank you, senior." Nyan politely expressed her gratitude, then called out to Naori's retreating figure, "Sister Naori, if you make eye contact with Kirito and channel your pupil power, you can forcibly break the Genjutsu." "Is that so?" "Huh? How did you know that?" "No time to worry about that now. I'll hold off these people." Nyan's hands flashed in rapid succession as countless shuriken tore through the air. With a series of thud-thud-thud impacts, the projectiles struck the puppet bodies, sparks flying in all directions. The shuriken ricocheted and spun midair before embedding themselves into walls, floors, and ceiling beams, scattering in every conceivable direction. Naori didn't dare delay, swiftly switching positions with Nyan to support her younger brother. "Be careful, these people feel no pain." She was about to warn them when she looked up and realized it wasn't necessary. Crystalline glints suddenly flashed through the air as Nyan pulled both hands, revealing densely packed threads that wove into a net, completely entangling and tightly binding all 5 puppets. Fire style, Dragon Fire Technique. Nyan meticulously formed hand seals without the slightest terror, concluding with the tiger seal. A surge of intense fire-style chakra gathered in his throat as he inhaled, spreading outward along the threads. Flames erupted in a brilliant flash as over a dozen thick pillars of fire raced along the threads. All puppets were instantly engulfed in a sea of fire, their bodies blackening inch by inch. Seizing this opportunity, Nori swiftly pried open her younger brother's eyelids, revealing his vacant, bewildered eyes. Her beautiful gaze sharpened as she imprinted the three-tomoe pattern onto Garito's pupils. With a burst of ocular power, Garito's body shuddered, and the light returned to his eyes. I'm still alive? Breaking free from the Ganjutsu felt like suddenly waking from a dream. The intense dissonance between reality and illusion made him instantly realize he'd been trapped in a dreamscape. Now that you're awake, you'll be fine. Nori gave him an encouraging smile before her gaze abruptly sharpened, ready to fight alongside Nyan. Though the puppets were dealt with, two figures remained upstairs, and one of them was the true caster of that technique. However, at this very moment, Nyan suddenly widened his eyes. Reflected in his pupils were 5 charred, swollen flesh spheres, with crimson blood proliferating across their surfaces, layer upon layer enveloping them, while terrifying energy brewed at their cores. Not good, run. At the critical moment, Nori yanked Nyan into her embrace, then swiftly turned around, shielding both younger brothers with her own body. No. Garito shouted, tears overflowing from his eyes. Nyan's eyes were illuminated by the flames, and in that moment, only one thought remained in his mind: I must protect both of them. In his desperation, he spread open his arms and unleashed a strange, unfamiliar power all at once. With a deafening boom, all 5 human bombs exploded simultaneously. The powerful shockwave rippled outward, and even the barrier couldn't withstand such an explosion. The entire inn was instantly blown apart, with wooden splinters and shattered tiles scattering in all directions amidst the violent wind. Footsteps echoed through the dissipating black smoke as the shop assistant emerged, patting his clothes to brush off the charred blood scabs bit by bit. Just before the explosion hit, he had refined the last puppet beside him into a blood shield, using its body to block the impact. Suddenly, he froze. Because he didn't see the shattered corpses of the 3 Uchiha members as expected. What met his eyes instead were countless splintered wooden fragments, with countless vines converging and closing to form a massive wooden shield that had firmly blocked the explosion beyond its barrier. At this moment, the trees began to crumble and shatter, revealing the unharmed figures of the 3 individuals. Chapter 25, Wood Style? Pant. Nyan Uchiha gasped heavily, beads of glistening sweat dripping from his temples. Staring at his trembling hands, his pupils quivered slightly as if something entirely unexpected had just occurred. This is Wood Style. Nori Uchiha's beautiful eyes widened to their limits. She'd already lost count of how many times she'd been shocked today. First his unflappable composure, then voluntarily releasing the Ganjutsu, followed by restraining the puppets, and now Wood Style. Just what other secrets was he hiding? As for Garito, he was completely dumbfounded, even briefly wondering if he was still trapped in an illusionary world. Are you kidding me? Who's the real ninja here? Did we get the wrong script? Actually, apart from these siblings, the shop assistant's expression was also quite spectacular. Is this the Wood Style secret technique? The shop assistant frowned deeply. Have I been locked away too long? Has the world changed this much already? At this very moment, within Nyan's spiritual world. Well now? I never expected you'd inherit even this. Kamien looked amused, hands clasped behind his back, unable to help clicking his tongue in wonder. Senior knows the origin of this power of mine? Nyan asked hurriedly. Of course, the power of Wood Style. This is the strength your father left you. My father. Now isn't the time to dwell on this. Kamien pondered for a moment. With your current chakra reserves, you should only be able to perform some small tricks. While the two were conversing, the shop assistant from the Chinoite clan hadn't been idle. Though shocked by Nyan's display of Wood Style, he didn't hesitate in his actions. He raised his hand, using the blood on the floor to form a blood spear, aimed it at Nyan's head, and hurled it with full force. At the critical moment, Kamien took control of Nyan's body but didn't block his sensory perception of it. Kid, watch closely. I'll only demonstrate this once for you. The blood spear transformed into a crimson streak, arriving in an instant. Wood Style, wooden pillar wall. Nyan Uchiha swiftly formed hand seals as a row of wooden pillars erupted from the loosened earth, bending and interlocking in rapid succession to form a sturdy arched barrier. Boom. The ground trembled slightly as the blood spear shattered against the wooden wall, dispersing into countless crimson droplets. But Nyan didn't stop forming hand seals. His fingers rapidly shifted through sequences as he pressed a single palm against the ground. Wood style, adamantine attacking wood. The ground rippled with concentric waves as several crimson wooden pillars burst forth from the earth like hunting serpents, stretching toward the distant shop assistant. The man's expression tightened as he retreated repeatedly. His blood-controlling ocular technique had already failed twice against this wood style. He dared not recklessly touch these bizarre wooden constructs. He stomped heavily on the ground, propelling himself upward as wooden pillars intertwined and chased after him like rising tentacles. Seeing his ankle about to be ensnared by the wooden pillars, the man's expression turned fierce. Drawing his blade, he slashed his own wrist, using his blood to form a slender sword which he then swung at the pillars. With a loud clang, droplets of blood sprayed outward. Using the recoil force, he finally escaped the grasp of the wooden pillars, landing far away on the street like a swooping falcon. Nyan, when did you get so strong? Garito's mouth hung open, his face etched with profound shock. Nyan Uchiha didn't respond. His hand seals continued uninterrupted, palms pressing together before suddenly locking tight. Wood style, wooden spike technique. Midair, the tips of the wooden pillars creaked as they rotated with a crack-crack sound, aligning like cannon barrels toward the enemy's position. As Nyan's chakra erupted, dozens of sharp wooden spikes shot through the air. The rain-like barrage of attacks forced their opponent into desperate retreat. Rows upon rows of wooden spikes embedded themselves into the ground, transforming the battlefield into what resembled a newly sprouted grove. Your strength puts my mind at ease. Garito gave a thumbs up. After unleashing the third ninjutsu, Kamiane relinquished control, returning the body's command to Nyan. Study these three moves well. Defense, control, and attack. If you can master them, they'll serve you for years. Kamiane's spirit leaned back, hands behind his head, adopting a spectator's pose. Thank you, senior. Nyan gasped heavily for breath. When he regained control of his body, he suddenly realized that most of his chakra had been exhausted. Take deep breaths. Dizziness is normal. Kamiane said, you're still very young. Once your chakra reserves increase, you'll be able to learn more advanced wood-style ninjutsu. At this moment, the hidden future Sannin also detected the commotion from the battle. Figures flashed as they landed swiftly beside Nori. Wood-style secret technique. Tsunade covered her mouth in shock, staring disbelievingly at Nanuchiha's retreating figure. This is impossible. This was her grandfather's exclusive secret technique, the pride of the Senju clan. Even her father hadn't inherited this unique KK Genkai, yet now it had been inherited by a boy from the Uchiha clan. Watching the sudden emergence of a small grove, Jiraiya drew a sharp breath, casting a look of awe at Nyan for the first time. Even Orochimaru's eyes revealed astonishment. Brat! Running out of chakra, aren't you? A loud shout suddenly came from the head as the shop assistant charged forward with a vicious grin. Raising his hand, he summoned a churning blood pool. With bubbling glug-glug sounds, the blood surged upward, continuously swirling around him. Blood hail! His eyes widened abruptly, pupils instantly transforming into blood-red horizontal slits. This was the true form of the blood dragon eye. Just like the Uchiha's Sharingan, the Blood Pond clan members also required intense stimulation to awaken their eyes. Among those who awakened, only 1 in 100 could master powerful ocular techniques. This ordinary-looking shop assistant was clearly among the elite. The blood water rippled and transformed into a sky full of blood rain, scattering down in torrents. Where it struck the ground, dense clusters of craters appeared, demonstrating its formidable destructive power. Everyone, regardless of your questions about Nin, let's deal with the enemy first. Nori said calmly. We're all part of Hidden Leaf Village. Of course. Tsunade knew these words were meant for her. With a loud shout, she smashed her fist into the ground, the tremendous impact lifting an entire section of earth like a shield above their heads. Jiraiya swiftly formed hand seals. Earth-style wall. The earthen shield suddenly expanded, reinforced over tenfold, becoming as solid as bedrock and rendering the blood rain completely ineffective. At this very moment, the blood pool churned violently, sending towering waves splashing as a four-headed crimson dragon gradually took form. The shop assistant stood atop the dragon's head, charging forward with menacing momentum. Fire-style, Great Fire Dragon Technique. Wind-style, Whirlwind Tempest. Garito and Orochimaru coordinated with perfect synergy. The combined wind-fire ninjutsu unleashed a roaring inferno as a massive fire dragon surged forth to meet the blood dragon. Boom! The shockwave erupted violently, dispersing thick blood mist with a nauseating metallic stench. Seizing the opportunity, Nori charged into the crimson fog with her short sword held firmly. What? The man exclaimed in shock as a pair of crimson Sharingan eyes materialized before him with blinding speed. He hastily formed blood blades to parry Nori's close-quarters assault. Nori was completely at Jonin level, her taijutsu sharp and swift. With the dynamic vision of her Sharingan, she severed an enemy's arm in just a few exchanges. Suddenly, a spectral form silently penetrated the shop assistant's forehead, causing his expression to momentarily freeze. Seizing the opportunity, Nori swung her blade in a clean horizontal slash that severed his head. The man's body dissolved into a pool of blood with a squelch sound, seeping into the earth. Amid the exploding rain of blood, Nyan's spirit form was exposed with a dumbfounded expression. Miscalculated. It was actually a blood clone. Simultaneously, a figure appeared beside Nyan's true body, letting out a sinister laugh as it raised a bloodied blade high. At this moment, Nyan's physical body had completely fallen into slumber due to the spirit's departure, his face serene and utterly defenseless. This was the fatal flaw of the spiritualization technique. Having thoroughly studied the secret scrolls, Nyan was well aware of this weakness. The reason for his confidence was, with one hand gripping the man's wrist in a deathlock, Nyan nearly opened his eyes. Surging currents of air roared as he pressed a rapidly spinning chakrosphere directly against the man's chest. Blue light erupted as the man screamed, sent flying by tremendous rotational force that smashed him through 3 consecutive buildings. By the time the others arrived, he had already lost consciousness. The spiritual body returned to its vessel, yet his spirit suddenly stirred. The senior Kamiane who had been watching the show within his mental world had now completely vanished. Chapter 26, Adapting to Aging Hidden Leaf Village. The once peaceful and harmonious streets had descended into chaos due to the horrific suicide bombings. Cries and wails filled the air, occasionally punctuated by explosions. Nearly half the village had been paralyzed, thrown into complete disorder. The attackers were extremely ferocious. Their method of breaching the village showed no finesse. Relying entirely on the element of surprise with human bombs, they directly blasted open Hidden Leaf Village's main gate. Hundreds of bloodthirsty members of the Chinoy clan surged in wildly, killing everyone in their path as they charged toward the Uchiha district in a terrifying wave. Help! Somebody help me! A villager screamed in terror as a zombie-like figure chased after him. The pursuer's face was rigid, their eyes gleaming with a horrifying red light. Even with a kunai still embedded in their heart, they moved with unnatural ease. In his panic, the villager accidentally crushed a fruit basket underfoot, lost his balance, and tumbled head over heels before crashing into a street corner. The attacker stretched out his hand, about to grab the villager's hair. The villager was thrown to the ground, blood streaming from his head, but in that moment he couldn't even feel the pain. He could only watch helplessly as that massive hand drew closer. Wind style, wind cutter technique. An Anbu ninja leaped down from the rooftop, completing his hand seals as he landed. A sharp slicing sound cut through the wind as an invisible blade flashed. With a sickening squelch, the attacker's arm was severed cleanly at the shoulder. The wind howled as another air blade swept horizontally, bisecting the attacker at the waist. Thick crimson blood splattered across the villager's face. Though the scene was rather gruesome, at least they were saved. An Anbu ninja quickly approached the villager, pulling him up by the arm. "Are you alright? Can you walk? I'll take you to the safe zone." Suddenly, a glimmer of red light flashed in the villager's eyes. Seizing the moment, he tightly gripped the Anbu's arm, clinging to his body like a koala. "Hey, what are you doing?" The ninja cried out in alarm, forcefully pushing the other's head away. Reflected in his pupils was the other's expressionless face. The villager's facial wound began to fester, oozing dark red froth that swiftly enveloped the entire body, swelling into a grotesque flesh sphere that pulsed like a heart with a thump-thump rhythm. Damn it! The Anbu ninja attempted to form hand seals, but it was already too late. Boom! With a flickering beam of light, the flesh sphere abruptly contracted before exploding violently. A howling gale flattened everything within a dozen-meter radius. Only a blood-filled crater emitting scorched smoke remained on the spot, along with the unrecognizable corpse of an Anbu ninja. Similar scenes played out across the streets of Hidden Leaf Village's southeastern district. Although the Hidden Leaf Village ninja responded immediately, given these zombies' fearless nature and rampant infectiousness, quickly suppressing them was no easy task. Moreover, the true masterminds had already blended into the crowd. As long as they remained alive, human bombs would keep emerging endlessly, with many villagers becoming collateral damage. Innocent souls caught in the crossfire. In the southern district, an izakaya stood empty, its patrons having fled in panic at the first sound of explosions. Plates and bowls clattered to the ground as people rushed through the doors, leaving behind scattered delicacies in their wake. In stark contrast to the chaotic crowd, the atmosphere in a private room on the second floor remained undisturbed. 3 diners continued eating and drinking as if the terrorist attack simply didn't exist. "Is this the good show he wanted me to see?" Madara Uchiha's deep voice rumbled as he took a sip from his cup. "Perhaps." Across the table, Hikari Uchiha gazed out the window. On the street outside the izakaya, 3 explosive human puppets had completely surrounded a Hidden Leaf village shinobi, driving them into a desperate situation. Madara snorted coldly. Fighting over nothing but the clan leader position, they actually released the Chinoi clan. The Uchiha clan's methods have fallen to such despicable levels now. Their methods have always been despicable, ever since before you took office. Hikari said softly, her limpid eyes flashing with sorrow. Madara unconsciously glanced at her, shaking his head with a light laugh. You're not wrong, but I'm no saint either. I merely suppressed all schemes and intrigues through sheer strength. If not for Kamiane, even I would have forgotten your existence. The past is gone. I no longer care about rights and wrongs. What I cherish more is the present. Hikari turned her head slightly to look at the man beside her. At this moment, Kamiane was resting his cheek on one hand propped against the table, seemingly in deep slumber. His breathing was even, with long eyelashes casting dense shadows like curtains in the midday sunlight. Hikari blinked, gazing at his handsome face with its neat eyelashes and jade-like delicate skin, then sighed. This guy is clearly 30 years old this year, yet he shows no signs of aging at all. There's nothing to be done about it. Madara chuckled. He says he's adapted to aging. Ah, that's so unfair. Hikari puffed her cheeks, resting her chin in her hands. He just watches as Lord Madara grows older day by day, while he remains forever young. The Sharingan, as the eye that reflects the soul, possesses effects that others can only envy. Especially when it involves the power of space-time. Madara patiently explained. Over these years, I've tried using the transcription seal to store his ocular techniques, just like how I once transplanted Amaterasu and Tsukahime into you. Unfortunately, without exception, every attempt failed. That brat's ocular techniques are too unique. Just like your Yita mirror, they're impossible to replicate. After evolving into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, apart from Susanoo, Kamiane's innate ocular techniques also received enhancements. Miharaga could selectively adapt to 3 different things simultaneously, with each adaptation process remaining independent of the others. When he focused his ocular power to analyze a single target, the adaptation speed would increase by a full 3-fold. Not only that, but the adaptation process has now become controllable. He can independently choose the results after analysis, and if he is dissatisfied with the direction of evolution, he can overturn it and start anew, approaching adaptation from a different angle. In other words, to some extent, he can control the optimization progress, allowing the path of evolution to proceed according to his predetermined direction. For Hidden Rain Village no Tokatachi, the original 5-minute timeline has been extended to 10 minutes. Although the 1-second cooldown still exists, the ocular power consumption when rewinding others has also decreased significantly. Thanks to Meiharaga's adaptation speed, after 2 years of effort, he finally succeeded in adapting to cellular aging at the age of 28. The genetic sequences controlling cellular degeneration and apoptosis in his body have been completely optimized. Only external attacks can cause damage, while all the negative effects that normal people experience, such as immune system decline, stress and wear, nutritional imbalances, and metabolic disorders, have been completely erased. After cell division, the newly generated cells inherit the peak state of their predecessors, granting him true immortality. This is truly astonishing. Nothing short of a leap in the very essence of life. Consider this, even the legendary Sage of Six Paths couldn't escape the natural aging of his physical body. Becoming the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki didn't change that fact. Chapter 27, Leisurely Stroll. At that moment, a gentle breeze swept by. Kamiane's eyelids fluttered slightly, yet his breathing remained steady as he didn't open his eyes immediately. Kid, trying to eavesdrop on our conversation, aren't you? Madara cast a casual glance, a trace of amusement flashing through his heterochromatic eyes behind the sunglasses. Hikari slightly placed her hands on her hips, immediately puffing up her cheeks in annoyance. Kamiane sighed helplessly, then opened his eyes and cleared his throat to change the subject. Ah, that nephew of mine is quite interesting, isn't he? To think he actually inherited the power of wood style. Wood style? Hey, that Tobirama fellow is quite capable after all. Old Madara was indeed drawn into the conversation. A transformation at the genetic level. Aside from your Meiharga, only his unbelievable techniques could achieve something like this. Unfortunately, figuring out his experiments would take us who knows how long on our own. That's precisely why we need those specialized talents. Kamiane selected a juice box and stabbed the straw in with a crisp click. Putting everything else aside, your ability to win people over has improved by leaps and bounds these past few years. Madara chuckled lightly, teasing at just the right moment. Kamiane naturally understood he was referring to how he'd charmed the 4 young ninjas from Hidden Leaf Village. To prevent the old man Madara from feeling isolated and losing touch with the shinobi world, Kamiane would share every detail of his outside activities. including matters involving Kakazu and the Land of Iron. All this intelligence was completely transparent to Madara. He'd even revealed to both of them that his hidden rain village no Tokatachi could rewind time for targets other than himself. Now that he'd awakened the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, it was time to show this trump card. Facing Madara's jest, he raised his cup in acknowledgement, wearing a perfectly measured smile. All thanks to Lord Madara's excellent guidance. Boom. A violent explosion erupted outside the window as two bomb puppets tightly embraced Hidden Leaf Village shinobi on the street, reducing them to mangled flesh in the blast. Rubble came crashing down, burying them beneath the ruins. At that moment, the final puppet seemed to detect some movement. Its neck twisted unnaturally as red light flashed in its eyes, locking onto the private room on the second floor of the Izakaya. She was just an ordinary girl, her delicate features still visible beneath the terror, the very picture of youthful beauty. Yet now she was completely controlled by the blood prison eyes pupil technique, her life hanging by the puppeteer's whim. The girl bent her knees and suddenly leaped, propelling herself over 3 meters into the air. She shattered the window of the private room where Kamiyane and the others were gathered, crashing through in a shower of glass. This is power temporarily borrowed at the cost of sacrificing the girl's physical endurance, fully extracting the meager chakra from their cells to unleash strength they could never achieve in their lifetime. A method that shares remarkable similarities with the spiritualization technique. Wooden splinters scattered in all directions as Madara and Kamiyane leaned back in perfect sync. One holding up a glass of juice, the other shielding his teacup. Meanwhile, Hikari remained utterly composed as she reclined, still clutching half an apple in her hand. The girl landed with a roll to disperse the impact, then immediately turned to face the trio, spreading her arms wide as she prepared to self-destruct. Suddenly, within her wide-open eyes, the reflection of a pair of hauntingly beautiful 3-Tomoe Sharingan appeared. She stood frozen as if under a binding spell, pausing in that bizarre posture without moving a muscle. Kamiyane propped his chin on his hand, blinking his crimson eyes with an air of appreciation. Using Genjutsu to strain the mind, then mixing your own chakra into the target's bloodstream. So this is how human bombs are created. Given the blood prison eye's strict requirements, the caster wouldn't be too far from their puppets. We can use the Genjutsu to trace his location in reverse. Madara remarked, taking a sip of tea. Very well, I'll demonstrate it myself. Watch closely, both of you. As he spoke, he slid his sunglasses down a few centimeters, revealing a crimson 3-Tomoe Sharingan eye that locked gazes with the puppet. Kamiyane immediately adopted a serious expression, and Hikari also activated her Sharingan, entering the puppet's mental world through Genjutsu. The three's spiritual energies converged within the puppet's consciousness. High above in the sky, a pair of suspended bloodline eyes trembled slightly as 3 pairs of bone-chilling gazes swept toward them simultaneously. Several hundred meters away from this location, in a temporary shelter, a middle-aged man with flaxen short hair suddenly began bleeding from his nose and mouth before collapsing to the ground in convulsions. What's going on? Such formidable ocular power, and there are actually 3 of them. The moment his gaze met those eyes, his entire body turned cold, an uncontrollable chill eroding his very soul. Got you. Madara smiled proudly as he withdrew from the girl's mental world. Kamiyane and Hikari simultaneously disengaged as well. The 3 of them, with their profound ocular powers as deep as the ocean, had already dispelled the blood dragon eye's Genjutsu and chakra. The girl returned to normal, but due to excessive exhaustion, her eyelids fluttered before she collapsed unconscious. So Genjutsu can be used like this. To engage enemies remotely? Hikari blinked in astonishment. Kamiyane nodded. It seems there's still much for us to learn. Child's play, hardly worth mentioning. Madara turned his head away, using his teacup to conceal the faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Kamiyane stretched and rose from his seat. We've eaten our fill and seen enough drama. How about we go for a walk? Hikari walked over to the girl and helped her up. I'll take her to the hospital. Kamiyane looked toward Madara. What about you, Lord Madara? Don't mind me. Do what you want to do. Madara showed no intention of moving. All right. Kamiyane gazed in a certain direction. Though I have no intention of interfering with Hidden Leaf Village's troubles, encountering the Ketsuri Ugin is rare enough. Might as well go have some fun. As the words faded, his figure vanished abruptly, a faint breeze gently stirring Madara's long hair. That brat. His teleportation jutsu grows more godly by the day. Inside the shelter, dozens of trembling villagers huddled together, each casting nervous glances at one another, worried that the person beside them might suddenly explode at any moment. The main door was tightly sealed, with 4 Jonin standing guard outside the shelter in tense vigilance, keeping the clamoring crowd at bay as chaos reigned at the scene. After such a prolonged period of riots, they had more or less identified the signs of human bombs. Typically only those who had suffered external injuries would explode without warning. Thus, this became their criterion for determining whether villagers could enter the shelter. At that moment, the ceiling suddenly shattered, and a black-clad youth descended from above, landing lightly on his feet, drawing everyone's gaze. Kamien leisurely surveyed his surroundings, his obsidian-like pupils slightly shifting as he casually sipped through a straw, left hand still holding a juice cup. His relaxed demeanor made him seem detached from the world itself. "There you are." He spoke softly. The crowd only saw him take a step, and in the next instant, he appeared before a middle-aged man. The man paled in shock, instantly recognizing those eyes. His expression immediately twisted into ferocity. The next second, he opened a pair of blood-red horizontal pupils, and blood condensed into a dagger that viciously stabbed toward Kamien's face. But Kamien paid no attention to the dagger thrusting toward his face. A ripple like water surfaced in the air, and the middle-aged man felt as though he had struck an iron wall. His wrist bent from the recoil, and the blood dagger shattered along with it. Still holding the straw between his lips, Kamien reached out with his free right hand, grabbed the man's hair, and lifted him up like a chick. The surrounding villagers jostled and shoved, avoiding them like the plague, but Kamien couldn't be bothered with them. With a long leap, he kicked up a whirlwind from the ground. By the time the crowd was choking on the dust, he had already vaulted out from the rooftops. Who are you?" the man asked, his voice trembling. "Me? Just the Uchiha you despise most." Kamien looked down at him, his crystal-clear pupils instantly transforming into 3 tomoe, blossoming like a magnificent flower. The man froze instantly as Kamien's mental energy invaded without restraint, seizing control of his consciousness with an utterly ruthless kanjutsu. Kamien took a sip of juice, his light tone carrying the authority of a sovereign. "Tell me your numbers, origins, and the reason for attacking Hidden Leaf Village." Chapter 28, The Reason. At the entrance of Hidden Leaf Village, when Nari Uchiha and her group rushed back to the village, everyone wore solemn expressions, sensing something unusual in the air. As expected, they stepped over the shattered gates, the faint wails carried by the breeze mingling with the pungent stench of blood that brushed against their cheeks. Not the salt of the sea, but the iron of blood. The streets and buildings lay in ruins, the cracked earth riddled with deep craters, countless plumes of black smoke coiling into thick, lingering tendrils. They exchanged stunned glances, their faces darkening. All except Nyan Uchiha. "We're too late," Naori murmured, her voice thick with self-reproach. "Damn it. Those lunatics actually attacked the village." Tsunade spat, stomping her foot in fury, the ground denting beneath her heel. In Hell Valley, after several people worked together to subdue the Blood Prison Clan's shop assistant, Naori immediately cast a Ganjutsu to extract all the information from the man through interrogation. Just as Naori had suspected, the so-called Hell Valley disappearance incident was indeed a scheme by the current Uchiha clan head to restrain his competitors. Those missing Uchiha clansmen weren't truly lost. They had gone into hiding under his orders, all to lure her into a trap. But something went wrong along the way. Months earlier, this newly appointed Uchiha clan head, fearing his position might be usurped, had devised a vicious plan. He had his trusted subordinate feign negotiations with the Bloodbond clan of Hell Valley, promising to completely dismantle the barrier and grant them freedom if they eliminated the targets entering the valley. But this was actually deception. Regardless of whether the Blood Prison clan fulfilled their part, he planned to permanently seal the barrier, never intending to release them. In the final stage of the plan, he prepared to send several suicide operatives into the barrier to lure Naori and her group into the valley under the pretense of a rescue mission. If Naori chose not to intervene, he could then invoke his authority as clan leader to condemn her for selfishness and cold-bloodedness, solidifying her reputation as someone who abandons allies. This would erode her standing within the clan until she became isolated and no longer posed a threat. If Naori were to enter the barrier to rescue them, it would be even simpler. The trusted subordinates lying in wait outside, masking their presence, would then activate a technique to seal the barrier, cutting off her retreat. Given the Blood Prison clan's hatred for the Uchiha, Naori and the others would undoubtedly be torn to pieces, left without even a grave to bury them. This shut the door to beat the dog strategy would allow him to eliminate his competitors using the Blood Prison clan's hands, without paying any price himself. The plan was originally set up this way, but before Naori and the others arrived, something went wrong. Uchiha clansmen suddenly turned traitor and launched a surprise attack, swiftly killing the Death Squad companions who were supposed to be sacrificed to enter the barrier. After throwing their corpses into the barrier, he completely opened it before quickly fleeing the scene. The disturbance in the barrier's walls quickly caught the attention of the Blood Prison clan members. When the corpses were discovered, to everyone's surprise, one Uchiha was found barely alive among them, not completely dead yet. It was unclear whether this was an oversight by the attacker or intentionally left this way. For the Blood Prison clan, while they couldn't comprehend this behavior, they had no reason to refuse such an incredible windfall. The humiliation of years of imprisonment ignited their fury, and they immediately acted. Using the Bloodline Knight to extract all intelligence from the dying Uchiha before killing him, then refining all the corpses into a blood pool. Some radical factions who had already awakened the Bloodline Eye and mastered its power rallied the entire clan, preparing to launch a retaliatory campaign against the Uchiha clan. After years of living isolated in the valley, they had been completely cut off from the outside world. Fortunately, through the intelligence extracted from that man's mind, they learned about the current world situation and the present state of the Uchiha clan. Since the Uchiha have already joined Hidden Leaf Village, let Hidden Leaf Village also experience the wrath of the Blood Prison. Of course, many Blood Prison clansmen who yearned for freedom opposed this attack. During the meeting, opinions diverged, but the debate didn't last long. Those advocating for a reclusive lifestyle were swiftly subdued by the ruling faction. Either crushed with overwhelming force, turned into puppets, or refined into blood pools. Until everyone became radicals advocating for launching an attack. They immediately formulated a plan, mobilizing their entire force to head for Hidden Leaf Village. Since there were still fat sheep from the Uchiha clan coming to them, there was no reason to let them go. For this purpose, they specifically left one strong warrior in the valley and set up a Genjutsu trap, aiming to completely annihilate the unsuspecting Naori and the others. After that came the incident where several people entered the Gashaku-in and fought fiercely with that shop assistant. "Sister, what should we do now?" Kirito asked. Naori took a deep breath, her gaze turning resolute. "Though this matter isn't my fault, it did start because of me. All of you should hide immediately. I'm going to stop these bastards. Everyone here is a shinobi. How can we even think of hiding when the village is in danger?" Tsunoda immediately stepped forward, her determined eyes making it clear that no one could stop her. Orochimaru remained silent but moved to stand beside the two, his stance making his position clear. Tsunoda's right. As the third Hokage's students, how could we possibly retreat? Jiraiya declared with righteous conviction. Besides, our strength goes far beyond mere Genin level. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's gaze involuntarily drifted toward Nyan Uchiha at the very back. They exchanged glances before tacitly looking away. After resolving the crisis in Hell Valley, Nyan had once explained why he possessed the power of wood style. Though even he himself wasn't entirely clear about it. He had earnestly requested everyone to keep this information confidential for the time being, as its disclosure would place him in a difficult position. Seeing this, Orochimaru and Kirito simultaneously spoke up in Nyan's defense. According to their speculation, Nyan's wood-style KK Genkai was likely connected to that secret scroll given to him years ago by their senior. Anything related to that person had to be kept under wraps. Jiraiya immediately waved his hand, clarifying that he wasn't the type to gossip. Although Tsunoda was quite interested in Nyan's abilities, she also didn't have the habit of talking behind people's backs. After all, every ninja's intelligence concerns their very life. Ninja battles are also information wars. Releasing a teammate's information without permission would be no different from betrayal. What's more, the group had already formed bonds through fighting side by side. Little Tsunoda wasn't the type to betray her comrades. However, Nyan's identity had already piqued her curiosity. After all, it was a power that even she, Hashirama's own granddaughter, had failed to inherit, yet this Uchiha named Nyan had mastered it. She secretly resolved to pay more attention to this quiet and low-key boy from now on. If her suspicions were correct, the two of them might actually be relatives. At this thought, a faint blush spread across her cheeks. Ah, what am I even thinking? She shook her head, dispelling those wandering thoughts. After deciding on their course of action, the group, still with Naori Uchiha as their leader, joined the operation to resist the Blood Prison's assault. Chapter 29, Hidden Leaf Village's counterattack. In the eastern district of Hidden Leaf Village, a dozen explosive puppets had gathered before an emergency shelter, charging toward its main entrance. A line of villagers still waiting for inspection blocked the entrance. Seeing the puppets swarming toward them, the crowd was terrified out of their wits, immediately descending into chaos. Damn it! A Chunin gritted his teeth and charged forward. Fortunately, these puppets weren't skilled in taijutsu. He dodged one puppet's grab and countered with a spinning kick that sent it flying, knocking over 3 or 5 other puppets in the process. To protect the villagers, this is the only way. He pulled out a kunai tied to an explosive tag, ready to throw. If he could blow these bastards to pieces in advance, the human bombs would naturally lose their threat. But at that moment, a pair of thick arms wrapped around him from behind, tightly binding his hands. The Chunin's face paled with shock. He felt hot, ragged breathing against the back of his neck, along with a tearful plea, "Please, honorable ninja, don't attack. My wife is among them. Damn it. Let me go." The Chunin shouted furiously as he twisted his head, finding himself restrained by a burly man. one of the villagers who had been waiting in line behind him. The opportunity was fleeting. Seizing the moment, the puppets surged forward again, dark blood frothing from their wounds. A telltale sign of imminent self-destruction. The newly freed Chunin paled in horror, his pupil shrinking to pinpricks. Just then, a deep, powerful voice cut through the air. "Inma, transform." Saratobe Hiruzen appeared in his combat attire, his gaze suddenly turning sharp as he leapt up with the agility of a nimble monkey. Amidst the dispersing white mist, an enormous adamantine staff burst through the fog, sweeping across with overwhelming force that sent all the explosive puppets flying midair. The staff changed length at will, continuously extending. With a deft movement of his hands, Hiruzen skillfully dissipated most of the impact force, deliberately avoiding shattering the puppets' bones, instead letting the staff's momentum carry them away to create a barrier between the villagers and the trembling threats. Shadow Clone Jutsu. With a poof sound, two of Hiruzen's shadow clones emerged from the smoke, sprinting along the Nyaibo all the way to its tip before landing successively. They formed a triangular formation with Hiruzen's true body, surrounding the puppets. Hiruzen retracted his staff, thrusting the Nyaibo. Now returned to its original size. Into the ground. His hands swiftly formed seals before clapping together forcefully. Sealing technique, three-way seal. The two shadow clones synchronized their hand seals with him. Their chakra converged into slender green threads, weaving from the ground into the air to form an emerald transparent triangular pyramid between the three. Like a barrier, it trapped all the puppets within. Under the formidable sealing power, they couldn't move an inch, and even the chakra within their bodies fell into complete silence. The self-destruction techniques they had just initiated were abruptly extinguished. "It's the Hokage-sama. Thank goodness, the Hokage-sama has come to save us." Hiruzen glanced back, nodding slightly in response to the villagers before turning to his subordinates and issuing commands. "The enemy is from the Blood Prison clan of Hill Valley, possessing the ocular KK Genkai known as Blood Dragon Eyes. Our villagers were turned into human bombs after being controlled by their Ganjutsu. If we don't resolve this, more innocent villagers will suffer. Sensor team, begin a thorough search starting from the Eastern District. We must locate and eliminate them one by one. Communications team, quickly summon Uchiha Shinobi for reinforcements. Their Sharingan can break the Blood Prison clan's control. Sealing team, until then, use sealing techniques to restrict their movements. The villagers are innocent. They're part of our village. Don't use lethal force." While Hiruzen was methodically issuing orders, Nari's squad quickly reunited with the village and joined the battle. Having already learned the method to counter the human bombs, Nari cut through enemies like a hot knife through butter along the way. With the power of her 3 Tomoe Sharingan, she could break the Blood Prison clan's Ganjutsu just by glaring at them from a distance. As captain of the Hidden Leaf Village Military Police Force, she immediately organized the Uchiha members. Coordinating with the 3rd Hokage's commands, they began a systematic search along Hidden Leaf Village's main streets, significantly reducing the threat of human bombs. In a certain alleyway, Kamiane strolled leisurely while sipping juice, his brilliantly crimson eyes emitting a dreamlike radiance in the darkness. Any puppet that glimpsed those eyes would instantly lose consciousness, collapsing limply to the ground. Die. Blood surged forth as countless droplets coalesced into a rapidly spinning crimson drill, launching a surprise attack from Kamiane's blind spot. Without turning his head, Kamiane casually raised his hand and flicked his wrist. A flash of blue light streaked through the air, splitting the drill. And its caster. Cleanly in two. Warm blood stretched into crimson ribbons several meters long in the wind. Using those under Ganjutsu to locate the caster's position. Lord Madara's technique is truly effective. He nodded in satisfaction with this newly acquired skill. Outside the alleyway, a lost little boy who had been separated from his family was cornered by 2 puppet-like zombies. Clutching his bloody dried arm with his eyes tightly shut, he remained completely unaware as the 2 puppets raised stone blocks and mechanically brought them crashing down. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of glistening threads suddenly materialized in the air, instantly suspending 2 puppets midair while slicing the falling stones into fragments. Kamiane flicked his fingers, causing the threads to tighten. The 2 puppets turned their heads stiffly like marionettes, forced to meet Kamiane's piercing gaze. Their impending self-destruction mechanisms instantly deactivated. As Kamiane retracted his threads, they collapsed to the ground, completely unconscious. "Are you hurt?" Kamiane tossed away the paper cup and crouched before the boy, offering a gentle smile. His voice was like a spring breeze, compelling the boy to open his eyes. In his trembling pupils reflected a face as warm and refined as jade. The boy knew this older brother had saved him. He tried to sit up to express his thanks, but the movement pulled at the wound on his right arm, making him grimace in pain. His pale lips were completely bloodless. Kamiane lifted the boy's arm and gently peeled back the blood-soaked sleeve, revealing a wound so deep the bone was visible. Has it been more than 10 minutes since the injury? He suddenly asked, the question seeming to come out of nowhere. Probably. It's been a while. The boy answered weakly, having nearly fainted just moments before. In that case, I'll have to use this technique. I'm not very skilled with it yet. It might tickle a bit, so bear with me. Kamien raised his hand and covered the wound, his palm emitting a soft green glow like a gentle flame. The boy immediately felt his entire arm grow warm. Then, the wound suddenly became unbearably itchy, as if his heart had been twisted. Gritting his teeth, the boy couldn't help but reach to scratch it. Look at me. The boy instinctively obeyed. What's your name? Kamien stared into his eyes, trying to divert his attention. I'm Taki. How old are you? I'm 4 years old. Kamien blinked. Are you scared? The boy looked around timidly before lowering his head. Yes. That's normal. When I was your age, I was scared too. As they spoke, the boy realized the itching had stopped. When Kamien removed his hand, the child was astonished to discover the wound on his right arm had completely vanished, without even a trace of a scar remaining. He stood up excitedly, only then belatedly realizing that he had regained some strength. Kamien patted the boy's head and pointed to the alley he had just passed through, speaking gently. Go back along this path. There's a temporary shelter. Don't worry, it's very safe. Thank you, big brother. Kamien's smile stiffened slightly. Narrowing his eyes, he watched the boy patter away before raising his right hand, aiming his fingertips at the building to the right, and firing a spiral bullet. A streak of blue light pierced through the air, penetrating layer after layer of walls, followed by a pained grunt carried by the gentle breeze. At that moment, Kamien sensed a familiar presence. He turned his gaze toward a certain direction, his profound eyes seemingly capable of piercing through multiple structures to lock onto several distant figures. How interesting. The corners of his lips curled upward as his figure vanished from the spot with a swish. Chapter 30, Discovery Fire Style, Great Fireball. Garito Uchiha took a deep breath and exhaled a massive fireball, its crimson flames cutting through the air as it shot toward a rooftop. A figure flashed by as a coldly elegant woman landed gracefully on the ground. Her crimson eyes snapped open, and with a wave of her hands, countless tiny blood blades scattered through the air like a deadly rain. Wind Style, Great Breakthrough. A fierce gale surged forth, forming a hazy wind barrier before Garito. The blood blades trembled violently in the turbulent currents, swaying like fallen leaves in a storm. As the wind intensified, they were swiftly torn apart into fine droplets of blood and scattered into nothingness. Orochimaru emerged from behind Garito, flicking his sleeve to send 3 spinning shuriken whistling through the air. Shadow Shuriken Technique. Fire Style. Nyan Uchiha had been waiting for this moment. With a single exhale, a tongue of flame licked across the swarm of shuriken, setting each one ablaze. Phoenix Flower Chloride. The woman's vision blurred as she found herself completely enveloped by the dense swarm of shuriken. The firelight illuminated her panicked face. In the next second, she would be riddled with bloody holes. She curled into a defensive ball, raising her arms to protect her vital areas as the flaming shuriken rained down upon her like a storm. TCH. TCH, TCH, TCH. Instantly, wounds crisscrossed her body. Arms, thighs, sides of her chest. As warm blood sprayed from the intersecting gashes. You damn brats, you forced my hand. She gritted her teeth and activated her ocular jutsu, gathering all the blood from her body before her. As her eyes emitted an eerie crimson glow, a sharp blood spear pierced through all the shuriken, thrusting forward with blinding speed that left no time to react. Orochimaru's vertical pupils constricted sharply. In that critical moment, Garito suddenly tackled him to the ground, narrowly avoiding the fatal strike. However, the spear's tip grazed Garito's back, tearing through his clothes to reveal a foot-long bleeding gash. Nyan and Orochimaru noticed the anomaly almost simultaneously. Having fought against the Blood Prison clan for so long, they immediately understood the implications. Orochimaru quickly covered Garito's head to block his vision, but it was too late. Garito's eyes had already reflected a pair of crimson horizontal pupils, his entire body becoming eerily still. Die. The woman revealed a sinister smile as she manipulated Garito to crush Orochimaru's body. Simultaneously, dark bloody froth began bubbling from Garito's back, and his body showed signs of swelling. Stop. In desperation, a wisp of ethereal energy shot from Nyan's forehead like an invisible lightning bolt, instantly piercing the woman's body. Nyan's body collapsed completely out of control, while the woman's expression froze mid-action. All movement ceased abruptly. Only her furious, shocked eyes revealed she still retained consciousness. At this very moment, within her spiritual world, Nyan's spirit form was rampaging wildly, engaging in a fierce chase with the woman's soul manifestation. Having activated the Blood Dragon Eye, the woman's spiritual power was not inferior to Nyan's. Though Nyan's mental energy far surpassed that of her peers due to her training in the spiritualization technique, she still couldn't instantly obliterate the opponent's soul. Moreover, this was enemy territory. An away game. Without spiritual power that completely overwhelmed the opponent, she could only brace for a grueling battle. The woman abruptly halted her pursuit. Suddenly, a pair of enormous eyes opened in the sky as the spiritual world was engulfed in rolling sandstorms. Golden lightning bolts angrily struck down, forcing Nyan's spirit form to dodge frantically with panicked eyes, utterly defenseless against the onslaught. The woman snorted coldly as the earth violently split open, with scorching magma erupting from the fissures. This move was extremely perilous, nearly obliterating Nyan's spiritual form. As a Ganjutsu ninja, she was no stranger to battles within the mental realm. This was her world, also known as the inner landscape. Through mental training, she could create and alter reality at will, truly embodying the concept of mind over matter, where anything imaginable could be achieved. With a wave of her hand, endless vines burst from the ground, forming a massive cage that trapped Nyan. The lightning gathered, and with a single snap of fingers, a dazzling golden thunder hung high in the sky, as a massive forked bolt descended toward Nyan's head, which he barely managed to dodge by a hair's breadth. The battle was completely one-sided. The woman wielded the power of wind, forest, fire, and mountain, employing various techniques in rapid succession. Nyan had no means to counter them and could only dodge frantically, narrowly escaping death several times. Each moment more perilous than the last, nearly being wiped out in a single strike. This was his spiritual body, a manifestation of his soul to some extent. If it were obliterated, it would truly be the end for him. Escaping the danger was actually quite simple. All he needed to do was withdraw from the woman's mental world, and all threats would cease to exist. But he couldn't. Though their fierce confrontation in the mental realm seemed prolonged, only a single second had passed in reality. In that split second, Orochimaru pushed Garito away from his embrace while simultaneously drawing a kunai and hurling it straight at the woman's forehead with full force. The kunai sliced through the air, its cold metallic glint flashing as it embedded itself deep between the woman's brows, sending droplets of blood splattering onto the ground. In an instant, the stormy landscape of the mental world vanished completely. With an expression of utter disbelief, the woman's soul began fading fragment by fragment until everything was devoured by abyssal darkness. Nyan immediately withdrew, his spiritual body bathing in sunlight once more as it retreated back into his own forehead between the eyebrows. He quickly opened his eyes to see an exhausted Orochimaru and Garito, unharmed and back to normal. That was way too close. Yeah. But we won. Orochimaru forced a tired smile at him. Still slightly dazed, Garito also recalled what had just happened, cold sweat instantly beading on his forehead. The three exchanged glances, each wearing the foolish grins of survivors who'd narrowly escaped death. Ha 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 ha. In the southern district, within a forest, Heiser shielded the villagers behind him, his face grave as he confronted two puppets. Run! He shouted, immediately throwing a smoke bomb forward. The villager didn't dare hesitate. The moment white smoke billowed up, he turned and sprinted wildly, covering dozens of meters in one breath. The two puppets, their vision obscured, charged forward blindly but were immediately tackled to the ground by a single figure. Haruko clung desperately to one puppet's body while simultaneously tripping the other enemy with his leg, rolling to pin both of them beneath him. The Blood Prison's method of controlling human bombs was utterly predictable. Since ordinary villagers lacked combat skills, they would manipulate the puppets to engage in close combat, creating wounds to inject chakra and create new puppets. But when facing shinobi, they detonate at point-blank range, trading one life for another. Both puppets simultaneously swelled, crushing Haruko beneath them as a blinding beam erupted outward, a tremendous explosion that shook the entire forest. The storm flattened the grassland and dispersed the smoke, leaving only a deep crater behind, from which black smoke with a charred smell billowed out. In the distance, the ground shifted slightly as Heiser overturned a stone slab and crawled out in disarray, his long white hair now stained pitch black. He approached the crater, gazing at the devastating scene while panting heavily with lingering fear. For a ninja like him with little natural talent, the key to survival lay in skillfully utilizing ninjutsu. Had he not used a shadow clone to bait out the puppet's self-destruction in time, he wouldn't have even had the confidence to escape unscathed. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed slightly. There seemed to be something at the bottom of the pit, reflecting a sharp dark blue glint through the dappled sunlight. Suspicion rising in his heart, he immediately stepped forward to investigate. When he leaped into the pit and brushed away the thick layer of dust with deep curiosity, his eyes widened in an instant. It was a piece of metal with a deep, rich hue. No, to be more precise, it resembled a structure, a fragment of some colossal entity buried deep within the soil. If he continued digging along the edges of the pit, he might uncover even more. He leaned in, cautiously tapping it with the hilt of his kunai before pressing his ear close to listen. A dull, muffled sound reverberated in his ears, followed by an unmistakable, hollow echo. Empty. He suddenly sat up, his face filled with intense shock. Could it be? Abruptly, he recalled a certain phrase that exploded in his mind like a bolt from the blue, leaving him so exhilarated he felt almost dazed. Only by standing on the shoulders of giants can one see further. The threshold of this path has already been crossed by someone else, and his research results are currently in Hidden Leaf Village. Suddenly, urgent cries for help came from the distance, startling Heiser from his excitement. He immediately leaped out of the pit. It was a father and daughter being chased by 3 puppets, clearly running in this direction. Heiser turned pale with fright. Hastily grabbing scattered turf and branches, he covered the deep pit. Then, gritting his teeth, he rushed forward to meet them. "I'll hold them off, you run that way." "Ah. Thank you, Ninja-sama." Chapter 31, The Black Hand in Hidden Leaf Village. As smoke and explosions filled the air, the setting sun dipped below the horizon while the evening glow enveloped the sky. With the 3rd Hokage personally taking charge, along with various countermeasures and deployments, this violent Jinoi clan assault incident that had raged throughout the afternoon finally came to an end. Hidden Leaf Village suffered heavy losses this time. In this terrorist attack, nearly 100 shinobi were killed, with civilian casualties being countless. Countless buildings were severely damaged, and the entire eastern and southern districts were paralyzed. To make matters worse, this incident dealt a severe psychological blow to Hidden Leaf Village's villagers. Many survivors were left with deep psychological scars that would be difficult to heal. After all, watching loved ones turn into human bombs would inevitably traumatize anyone. Had it not been for Naori Uchiha and others responding promptly, these deranged members of the Blood Prison clan might have broken through the southeastern blockade and penetrated deeper into Hidden Leaf Village. Hiruzen's strategy for dealing with the enemy was simple. The blood prisoners were nothing but a bunch of murderous lunatics who should be killed whenever possible, as failing to eliminate them would never quell the people's anger. If they encountered particularly troublesome individuals, they would exhaust all means to drive them out. Fortunately, with the united efforts of Hidden Leaf Village as shinobi, they managed to wipe out all these madmen by dusk. Ironically, the Uchiha clan's territory was located in the western district of Hidden Leaf Village. The blood prisoners fought desperately to their deaths without even catching a glimpse of a single tile from the Naka shrine. Of course, the Uchiha clan couldn't escape their share of responsibility. The very next day, Hiruzen convened a high-level meeting. He held the current Uchiha clan head accountable for negligence in supervision, demanding that the Uchiha clan bear all of Hidden Leaf Village's losses from the incident. They were also required to contribute personnel, funds, and labor to the reconstruction efforts as compensation, offering an apology to all the villagers of Hidden Leaf Village. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, especially amidst so many furious gazes, the clan leader felt immense pressure and naturally didn't dare refuse, forced to nod and accept responsibility. Yet in truth, regarding the Blood Prison clan's invasion, he was completely baffled. This was entirely outside his plans. What made it worse was that compared to him, the clan leader who had to shoulder both the responsibility and public condemnation, Naori Uchiha not only returned unscathed but even gained recognition for organizing the defense during the attack, preventing significant losses for the village and somewhat restoring the Uchiha clan's reputation. This earned her a notable surge of support within the clan. When all was said and done, this time he truly suffered a double loss, losing both his advantage and his standing. Which part went wrong? The plan was perfectly arranged. The terms were clearly negotiated. The death squad was fully prepared. The target was successfully deceived. How did it end up like this in the end? His expression turned terrifyingly dark, a storm brewing between his brows. After returning to the clan's territory, he immediately summoned his subordinate in secret, determined to get to the bottom of the matter. This subordinate was the trusted aide he had originally stationed at Hell Valley. The very person who had ultimately released the barrier with his own hands. In the dim and cramped secret chamber, the clan leader stood with his hands clasped behind his back, seemingly studying the family tree on the wall, but in reality, he was anxiously waiting. He needed an explanation. Fortunately, this subordinate didn't keep him waiting long. Upon receiving the secret order, he hurried over and stood firmly behind him. "What do you mean, my lord?" The lighting was dim, and the subordinate stood in the shadows, his figure indistinct. "What? Of course, I mean Hell Valley." Realizing his emotions were running high, he immediately lowered his voice. "What exactly happened in Hell Valley yesterday? How did the Jinoi clan escape? How did you handle this? Why was it completely outside our plans?" Faced with the rapid-fire questioning, this subordinate remained remarkably composed. "So it's about this matter." The subordinate's voice suddenly changed, becoming low, hoarse, and deliberately drawn out. Naturally, it was I who opened the barrier and released all the Chinoiite clan members. Are you truly so dull-witted? Couldn't you have figured that out? You. The clan leader suddenly turned his head, but a hand had already landed on his shoulder a step earlier. It felt like an electric current ran through his body, and then he found himself unable to move. In that hurried glance, he only had time to see that his subordinate's right face was dark as ink, while the left side seemed to have fallen into slumber. Even the left eye was heavily shut. In an instant, this ink-like darkness suddenly writhed, transferring from the subordinate's body onto his own. It spread like paint across half his body, splitting his face cleanly down the middle into two distinct halves. Damn it. What is this? He realized even his speech was becoming sluggish. Something was wrestling with him for control of his body. Not only were his bodily movements paralyzed, but his chakra had also become completely stagnant. No matter how hard he tried to circulate it, not a single ripple could be stirred. Panic suddenly seized him. By now, even if he wanted to activate that ocular technique, it was already too late. Trying to use Izanagi to rewrite reality? Just like you did before? Hey. Useless. He was dumbfounded, because those words had been spoken by his own mouth. That pitch-black entity had completely taken control of his body. The only thing he could still move was his pale, powerless eye. A heart sank to the depths of despair. Those who toy with reality will ultimately be toyed with by reality. The voice laughed, its tone dripping with mockery, as the clan leader could only watch helplessly while his own hand drew a kunai and aimed it at his heart. You are but insignificant pawns, while I, Black Zetsu, am your reality. PFFT. The kunai plunged straight into his chest, piercing through his heart. His eyes bulged violently, the veins in his neck nearly bursting. Clearly enduring immense agony, yet unable to utter even the faintest sound. Blood trickled slowly from his body as his temperature gradually dropped, his life inching toward its end. In the final moments, all he could hear was Zetsu's neurotic muttering to himself, Kamiane, so you're not truly heartless after all. Good, very good. As long as you're human, there will always be soft and vulnerable spots in your heart. And where those exist, there will always be weaknesses. A willpower was forcibly extracted from his body as the clan leader collapsed to the ground. Beneath him, a crimson pool slowly expanded, gradually swallowing his entire form. That ink-like shadow also seeped into the floorboards, leaving no trace behind. The next day, news of the Uchiha clan leader's suicide out of guilt spread like wildfire throughout Hidden Leaf Village. The Uchiha clan was instantly nailed to the pillar of shame. What little reputation they had painstakingly recovered was completely ruined by this shocking turn of events. Walking down the streets, they couldn't escape the strange looks and endless gossip pointed their way. Now, Garito finally understood how Nyan must have felt back then. But for the Uchiha clan, the humiliation from outsiders paled in comparison to the pressure coming from within their own ranks. With the clan leader dead, they found themselves once again in the awkward position of lacking leadership. No one knew whether they were destined for continued bitter factional struggles. Or perhaps a new future? Chapter 32, Dispute and Plan. Following the Blood Prison Plan incident, the vast Uchiha clan once again found itself leaderless, facing accusations from the higher-ups, strange looks from the villagers, as well as various aftermath and reconstruction tasks. They urgently needed a leader to guide them through this crisis. This matter was extremely difficult to handle. The difficulty didn't lie in the lack of a central leadership figure, but rather, there were simply too many so-called central figures. After the former clan head's death, the already turbulent undercurrents immediately surged into open waves. Many individuals with both strength and prestige began coveting the clan leader position, dividing into factions, organizing their own forces and teams, with none willing to submit to another. Everyone stopped pretending, the covert struggles were brought into the open, directly escalating into overt conflicts. In this silence, the deathmatch battle was once again tacitly acknowledged as the sole method for determining the next clan leader. But one person couldn't sit still any longer. Naori Uchiha, captain of the Hidden Leaf Village Military Police Force, as the most valued Uchiha in the village today, used her influence to convene an emergency clan meeting. Every member attended. A gathering so large it rivaled the night 20 years ago when Madara Uchiha left Hidden Leaf Village. At the meeting, Naori Uchiha vehemently condemned this infighting. Now was precisely the time when they needed to unite for warmth, yet some chose this moment to continue internal strife, drawing blades against their own clansmen for personal gain. This was courting destruction, utterly foolish to the extreme. She made her stance clear, only by working together, combining all their strength into one, could they restore the Uchiha clan's prestige. Soon, someone raised doubts. Captain Naori, we all understand your reasoning, but only through combat can one truly prove their strength. I for one would never accept a clan leader of inferior ability. Exactly. Strength is the only true measure of reputation. If you try to force my submission, I'd rather die fighting. Well, since Captain Naori opposes this plan, there's nothing to be done about it. After all, you're famously kind-hearted, no one in this village is more beloved than you. I just wonder, Captain, do you perhaps have a better solution? Someone asked with thinly veiled sarcasm. To this, Naori was naturally well prepared. She surveyed the assembly with unwavering conviction. We could implement a voting system, following the village's method for electing the Hokage. Every clansman would have voting rights, and the candidate with the most votes, representing the majority's recognized comrade, would win. Fair, just, and transparent. Wouldn't this approach be better? Her words plunged the meeting hall into absolute silence. After a prolonged stillness, a low voice finally shattered the quiet. Lord Naori, this approach of yours seems somewhat unreasonable, doesn't it? Naori's delicate brows furrowed slightly. How is this unreasonable? Humphrey, if we're truly pursuing fairness and justice, why must the minority submit to the majority? Just because we're fewer in number, we're supposed to blindly follow your lead? Voices of agreement immediately rose from below. Exactly. If we can't follow the strongest warrior we admire, how can we still call ourselves the Uchiha clan? A single stone stirred up 1,000 waves, and Naori's proposal was quickly drowned out by a tsunami of objections. The Uchiha were generally extreme and warlike by nature, which was precisely why, apart from supporting their own preferred clan leader, no one would acknowledge any other candidate. Suddenly, a young voice abruptly cut through the noise like a whistling arrow piercing the sky, overwhelming all other sounds. I support Captain Naori's view. Naori was slightly taken aback, following everyone's gaze toward a handsome young man with a forehead protector and shoulder-length black hair parted to both sides. This young man was named Nakuchiha, who, like Naori, was a member of the Hidden Leaf Village military police force and the strongest among them besides her. Is proving strength only possible through death matches? What you're doing is nothing but slaughtering your own clansmen. Indirectly weakening our own forces. Even if you win the fight, you'll just be criminals with blood-stained hands. Naka said solemnly. Humphrey. What does a snot-nosed brat like you know? The meeting lasted from morning till evening, with the group arguing from dawn till dusk, ultimately failing to reach consensus while only intensifying their conflicts. Several days later, at the entrance of the Ninja Academy, as school let out, Nyan Uchiha walked out of the classroom at a leisurely pace with his worn-out single-strap bag slung over his shoulder, heading back to the clan grounds as usual. Suddenly, he spotted a familiar figure leaning against the stone lion statue by the school gate, staring blankly at the sky as if waiting for him. Garrido? Nyan tilted his head and quickened his steps to approach. Noticing him, Garrido immediately looked up. School's out, as you can see. Nyan lifted her backpack and deliberately spun around in front of him. What? I suppose you're not here to pick me up from school, are you? Garrido forced a bitter smile and waved his hand. No, I'm just feeling troubled and wanted to walk with a friend. Since Orochimaru isn't around, I had no choice but to wait for you after school. How novel. I never thought there'd be anything in this world that could trouble you. Nyan teased expressionlessly, though she had already guessed the reason for Garrido's gloom. As they chatted and strolled along, Garrido absent-mindedly kicked pebbles the whole way. Under Nyan's careful probing, he finally revealed the source of his worries. It turned out that since that clan meeting, Naori had been in a constant state of anxiety, frowning all day long. It was the first time Garrido had seen his sister's delicate and elegant eyebrows furrow so deeply. The struggle for the clan leadership position continued relentlessly. Though Naori wanted to stop it, she ultimately found it difficult to shake the overwhelming tide of events. Emotions are contagious, especially for those you care about. Thinking what they think and worrying what they worry about becomes the norm. Garrido soon found himself affected by his sister's negative emotions, also sinking into unease. He didn't actually share his sister's grand ambitions. Compared to revitalizing the Uchiha clan, what he truly desired was to see his sister happy every day. Witnessing her joyful smile was the very meaning of his existence. Therefore, when it came to Naori's aspirations, he had always offered unconditional support, doing everything in his power to assist his sister and contribute in any way he could. But recently, his sister seemed to have wavered. The reason was that one night after the clan meeting, Nakuchiha approached Naori with a bold proposal. Since persuasion proved futile, then join the death match and become the sole victor. Use strength to wake them up. With Naori's power and status within the village and clan, coupled with Nakuchiha's assistance, the two of them could easily ascend to the position of clan leader by joining forces. Once that happened, there would be no more rivals within the clan, and the so-called disputes would naturally be quelled. In truth, The position of Uchiha clan leader had never been hereditary. The reason Madara became clan leader wasn't because he was the son of the previous leader, Tajima Uchiha, but because of his overwhelming, terrifying strength. The kind that suppressed all petty schemers and left no room for dissent. And now, Naka intended to follow in the footsteps of Madara Uchiha from back then, retracing the path of invincibility. Naori was somewhat puzzled. There were actually quite a few elite shinobi in the clan, and many had already unlocked the 3 Tomoe Sharingan. Alright, at this point, there's no need to keep hiding it any longer. Uchiha took a deep breath and activated his 3 Tomoe Sharingan. Under Naori's shocked gaze, the Tomoe in his eyes gradually shifted, forming a blood-red triangular boomerang pattern at the center. This is the Mangekyo Sharingan. Chapter 33, Hiroko's movement. So, Sister Naori agreed? Nyan asked in a low voice. On the path leading to the training ground, Garito Uchiha walked with his head hanging low, visibly dejected. Ever since Naka came to see my sister, she's been looking preoccupied. It's precisely because I can't figure out what she's thinking that I'm so troubled. Nyan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. The Mangekyo Sharingan. That's the Uchiha's ultimate power. Logically speaking, he should be able to defeat all opponents by himself. There's no reason for him to seek cooperation with Sister Naori. Hearing that Naka possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan didn't shock him as one might expect. He'd already seen eyes far more powerful and beautiful than that. That guy's clever, he's playing the long game. Garito explained. Even if he defeats all his opponents, his approval rating still wouldn't be enough. These things take time to cultivate. Right now, the clan member with the highest reputation is undoubtedly my sister, who coincidentally has no intention of competing for the clan leader position. That's the opportunity he's spotted. So he has the strength, and Sister Naori has the connections. As long as he gains her support, Naka can secure the clan leader position. Nyan finally caught on. As the two walked and talked, they inadvertently passed by the bathhouse when they suddenly halted simultaneously. Taking 2 steps back in unison, they peered into the alley's depths. There, at the corner outside the high walls of the women's open-air hot spring, a white-haired boy was crouching with his butt sticking out, peeking with great enthusiasm. Exchanging a glance, they both shook their heads helplessly before walking straight toward him. Hey, Jiraiya, have you seen Orochimaru? Garito asked with his hands in his pockets, his voice deliberately loud and casual. Jiraiya jumped like a startled cat, turning around in panic before realizing it was someone familiar. He then raised a finger to his lips, signaling for them to step aside and talk privately. Once they were out of the alley, Jiraiya glanced around like a thief, making sure no one was watching before letting out a guilty sigh of relief. You two really scared the hell out of me. Garito frowned. Do you realize how creepy this looks? Jiraiya pouted. If no one catches you, it's not creepy. But we've caught you multiple times already. Nyan said expressionlessly. Ah, damn it. Jiraiya flushed red and scratched his head, muttering under his breath, guess I'll have to train in transparency jutsu next time. You. Ah, never mind, let's get to business first. Garito shook his head in frustration. Have you seen Orochimaru? Nope. If he were here, Tsunade would definitely be around too. Then I wouldn't have time for my artistic research. Jiraiya looked puzzled. Why? You need him for something? I do, but definitely not for peeping. Hey, you bastard Garito. It's artistic research, artistic research. Do you know where he is? Nyan's heart stirred slightly as she asked quietly. That guy. Probably training as usual. So boring. Jiraiya waved his hand dismissively. Garito patted his shoulder. Actually, you're quite talented too. If you worked half as hard, Tsunade would definitely see you in a different light. Jiraiya looked indignant and slapped away Garito's hand. My earth-style techniques are plenty impressive, okay? I've even mastered A-rank ninjutsu, you all know that, right? Yeah, right. Huh? Why so dismissive? Just the other day, Hiroko was pestering me to teach him earth-style. You know Hiroko, right? Jiraiya racked his brain trying to remember the guy's good points. You know. That. Whatever, this guy's just too ordinary. Nyan felt slightly startled and instinctively exchanged glances with Garito. To them, this name was anything but unfamiliar. Why did he come to you to learn earth style? Nyan probed cautiously. Isn't it obvious? Jiraiya turned his head away, crossing his arms. Of course it's because he recognized this great one's strength. What more proof of acknowledgement do you need? Even Orochimaru was stunned. Nyan thought for a moment and changed the question. How's his learning progress? Of course it's fast. When I'm the one teaching, success is guaranteed. Though it was just a C-rank earth movement jutsu. Bringing this up, Jiraiya proudly smoothed his hair. Don't laugh, but after teaching him, I realized I might actually have some potential as a teacher. Nyan lowered his gaze in contemplation. Hiroko's unusually abnormal behavior naturally foreshadowed something momentous. In my mind, the words of that man involuntarily surfaced: assist either Orochimaru or Hiroko. As long as they successfully find the treasure, I'll consider your mission complete. As a reward, I'll tell you everything about your father. Deep in the hidden leaf village forest, beneath a shadowy thicket. Earth style, earth wave motion. Hiroko performed the hand seals with mechanical precision, his movements stiff yet flawlessly accurate. Summoning all his chakra, he pressed both palms firmly against the ground. Under the influence of this strange power, the earth's surface began rippling with faint undulations, shifting like water. Soil and stones moved sideways while plants swayed gently. The effect lasted less than 3 seconds before he collapsed exhaustedly onto the ground, gasping for air. Beads of sweat hung from his forehead, strands of hair clung to his temples, and his slumped posture all spoke volumes about his exhaustion. 300 meters. He muttered to himself. From that pit eastward, the ground remains hollow for 300 meters. Just how massive is this underground chamber? Ever since accidentally discovering that iron structure that day, he had tried breaking through the metal plating to access the secret room from above. Yet despite exerting all his strength, he couldn't make the slightest dent in it. The metal was of unknown material. He snapped over a dozen kunai trying to mark it, yet failed to leave even a scratch. Left with no choice, he buried the pit again while secretly memorizing its location, then began searching for the entrance. Unfortunately, he neither knew sensory ninjutsu nor possessed any special large-scale detection techniques, but fools always have their foolproof methods. He had to swallow his pride and beg Jiraiya to teach him Earth-style ninjutsu. Fortunately, the man was easygoing. A few smooth words and some thank you meals were all it took to learn this earth movement technique from him. This ninjutsu can alter the ground's hardness, creating large-scale soil fluctuations that make enemies lose their footing and balance. Skilled practitioners can control the fluctuation frequency, making the surface resemble boiling water. An excellent support-type technique. But Hiroko discovered another ingenious application, testing for underground hollow spaces. By sacrificing horizontal range, he could achieve sufficient vertical depth to reach the ceiling of hidden chambers. This allowed him to gradually map out the entire hidden chamber, like a blind man feeling an elephant, slowly locating the entrance's position. After resting for a while, he took a deep breath and resumed his investigation. Earth-style, ground wave. However, what he didn't know was that amidst the foliage of a certain large tree, a slender figure sat quietly on a branch. Jet black hair hung motionless as emotionless eyes observed him. A pair of golden vertical pupils emitted a chilling glow from the shadows. Chapter 34, Affection Land of Fire. Late at night, beneath a waterfall. Kamiane squinted his eyes, tilting his face upward as he bathed beneath the cascading water. He sat cross-legged, completely naked, his lower body fully immersed in the cool spring water. The cold water rushed over his well-defined muscles like a stream cascading over mountain rocks, and amidst the splashing droplets, his entire body glowed with a radiant paleness. To be fair, his muscles weren't overly bulky or rugged, but they were perfectly proportioned and aesthetically pleasing. Each one brimmed with explosive power, shimmering faintly like polished jade. Taking a cool shower on a summer night really is quite refreshing. With an expression of pure enjoyment, he stretched his body beneath the waterfall, scooping up a handful of spring water and watching the crystal-clear liquid slip through his fingers. After finishing his shower, he slicked back his dripping black hair before diving underwater, swift as a nimble fish, darting to the opposite shore in the blink of an eye to lean against a bank and bask in the moonlight. The full moon hung like a wheel, its glow mingling with an intoxicating fragrance carried by the wind. "Aren't you going to deal with the Uchiha situation?" The sudden voice sent a shiver down Kamiane's spine. He immediately turned his head to see a graceful figure flipping down from the tree branch on the shore, landing beside him with a faint fragrance in the air. "Did Lord Madara send you to ask me?" Kamiane didn't look at her. With light footsteps, a shadow enveloped him as Hikari Uchiha had already positioned herself behind his back. "Why do you always assume everything comes from Lord Madara?" A cool voice drifted down from above his head. "Though it's true this time. I don't care, we are the true Uchiha. No matter how chaotic things get over there, what does it have to do with us? What about your nephew? Are you abandoning him too?" "I never said Nyan belongs to Hidden Leaf Village," Kamiane stated. "He'll eventually be one of us. So you did prepare some backup plans after all?" Hikari asked softly. "I guess you could say that." Kamiane hunched his shoulders slightly, feeling the angle was rather awkward. Perhaps from spending too much time with old man Madara, he'd grown unaccustomed to having someone stand behind him. Hikari didn't speak, slowly crouching down while keeping her gaze fixed on him. "Hey, That's not fair, I never peeked when you were bathing. Kamiyane said with an odd expression. Have I ever stopped you? Hikari Uchiha's breath was as fragrant as orchids, her bright eyes like autumn waters, gazing down at him with a lofty look. Kamiyane raised his head. From his perspective, a certain majestic presence blocked half of his night sky. If you say it like that. Next time I won't hold back, you know. He forced out a mischievous grin, attempting to scare Hikari away with a lewd expression. But since he wasn't truly a pervert, the look ended up appearing somewhat goofy instead. Coward, you wouldn't dare. Hikari stared into his eyes, biting her vibrant red lips. How dare you look down on me? Seems like I'll have to teach you a lesson today. Kamiyane suddenly froze as rustling sounds of undressing came from behind him. The friction of garments against smooth skin before they fell onto the grassy shore. He perked up his ears slightly, like a meerkat on alert. See? Even when I'm undressing right behind you, you still won't turn around to look. Hikari sighed faintly, her tone laced with a trace of playful reproach. Kamiyane felt his masculine dignity being challenged. He raised his arm and reached back, grasping a small, cold yet soft hand in his palm. With a forceful pull, he dragged Hikari entirely into the spring water. With a splash, crystalline droplets sprayed into the air. She hadn't removed all her clothing. A snug camisole still clung to her upper body, while the state of her lower half remained a mystery. Nevertheless, Kamiyane could distinctly feel a certain softness and warmth pressing against him through the chill of the spring water. The cold water made her shiver. Facing Kamiyane's undisguised gaze, she blinked slightly, her fair cheeks suddenly flushing pink as she instinctively averted her eyes to the shimmering emerald surface of the water. Do you like me like this? Kamiyane asked softly, his tone carrying undeniable aggression. I. Hikari's gaze wavered, but summoning some unknown courage, she forced herself to meet Kamiyane's eyes. If you're not interested in me, just say it outright. After we've already done that kind of thing, how can you still act like such a coward? A coward? Kamiyane gave her a strange look. Is that how you've always seen me? Well, isn't it? I was being restrained and patient, a true gentleman. Hikari let out a light hum, still sitting on Kamiyane's lap yet acting like a proud little kitten. I don't believe you. Kamiyane narrowed his eyes slightly, his arms encircling her slender waist as their distance abruptly closed, their breaths mingling. I'm not very good at taking the initiative. I only like girls who like me. Do you like me? What do you think? Hikari's gaze was both cold and bright, like an orchid blooming in the dark night. Kamiyane unabashedly let his gaze roam over her entire body, his eyes lingering on the soft curves of her chest resembling spring mountain ridges, his brows dancing with amusement. If you don't pull away next, that'll be proof enough. He tightened his embrace around her delicate frame, leaning slightly to place a feather-light kiss on the pale expanse of Hikari's neck. As fleeting as a dragonfly skimming water. Hikari's heartbeat quickened uncontrollably, her eyes remaining tightly shut throughout. The warmth of his breath against her neck sent what felt like an electric current through her body. She stiffened momentarily before melting completely into Kamiyane's embrace, becoming pliant as water in his warm arms. The water rippled gently, the moon's reflection swaying. Her gaze grew somewhat dazed as she actively wrapped her arms around Kamiyane's neck, pressing her cool, soft lips to his mouth. Kamiyane inhaled her intoxicating fragrance, a certain thrill passing through his heart. His slender fingers lightly traced the smooth, jade-like skin of her back, like a tipsy breeze. Unable to resist, he closed his eyes as his lips were filled with that warm, moist sensation. After the prolonged kiss, the two opened their eyes simultaneously, frozen like stone, with only their hearts pounding wildly against each other. The riverside plants grew wildly, the moon descended, and the cicadas' chirping seemed to accelerate 100-fold. Time slipped through their fingers, days and nights changed, yet their gaze at each other felt eternal. A playful glint flashed in Hikari's eyes, but paired with her flushed cheeks, it unexpectedly revealed a fox-like charm. She gently bit Kamiyane's lips, murmuring indistinctly, "Idiot, I hate you." "Bite harder then," Kamiyane said calmly. Hikari slowly released her bite. Under the pale moonlight, a glistening strand of saliva connected their lips. "But I like you more," she whispered. "My apologies." Kamiyane raised his eyes, the exquisitely carved corners of his lips curling slightly. "It seems my love for you runs just a bit deeper." Splashing water droplets scattered as the two embraced once more. The moonlight was cold as water, the summer night breeze carrying threads of chill. At this moment, it seemed only Kamiyane's embrace held any warmth. Chapter 35, The Struggle for the Clan Head. Hidden Leaf Village. Year 26, the rear mountain of Naka Shrine. Naori Uchiha's long hair billowed as she stood on a jutting boulder. Her beautiful eyes were moist, yet her gaze was like an ancient well, Utterly still. Directly in front of her, two sword-wielding figures faced each other. Sunlight cut through layers of wind-borne dust and fell upon the Uchiha fan symbol on their backs. A murderous tension filled the wind, the scorching heat like a blade. Everything was poised to explode. The man on the left glanced sideways and gave a cold snort. "What, are the two of you going to gang up on me in a moment?" The man on the right let out a short laugh. "Takumi, you think too highly of yourself. I alone am more than enough to take you down." Takumi Uchiha's brow tightened, a shadow of gravity flashing in his eyes. "Naka-Uchiha, I hear you've awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan." At those words, Naka cast Naori a barely noticeable look, his eyelid twitched slightly before he quickly looked away. "What's wrong? Scared? Scared?" Takumi Uchiha bared the edge of his blade. "It's thanks to the Ganjutsu of those eyes that you beat so many opponents, but I'm different. If you lump me in with the fodder you cut down at will, you're making a huge mistake. You may not realize it, but every opponent I've defeated was just as confident as you are before the fight began. I'm quite used to it." Naka opened his eyes, a pair of Mangekyo bloomed with blood-red light. "Once we start, you'll understand. The gulf between the Mangekyo and an ordinary three-tomoe Sharingan is an abyss that cannot be crossed." Takumi likewise activated his own three-tomoe. He glanced warily at Naori and called out. "Captain Naori is known for her integrity, surely she wouldn't stoop to a cowardly backstab." Naori lifted her gaze, vermilion lips parting. "I won't interfere in the contest for clan head. I stand here only to make sure you don't kill each other." Naka shrugged at Takumi, raising a brow. "Relax, coward. She's on your side." Veins bulged on Takumi's forehead, he felt his dignity insulted and barked. "Are you kidding me?" Everyone in the clan knew Naori Uchiha was Naka's firmest pillar, the strongest supporter of his branch. Their alliance had swiftly ended a year-long internal strife. Naka's strength plus Naori and the entire police force's prestige had propelled him to his current zenith. Only a few competitors were still holding on. And he, Takumi Uchiha, the foremost fire-style prodigy in the entire clan and even Hidden Leaf Village, was one of those last competitors. "Well then." Naori's voice was icy. Her pale hand rose slowly in the dusty wind, then dropped like a guillotine. "Begin." Both men jerked their heads up. Dust exploded beneath their feet, and with a crisp clang of metal, they were already trading blows. Naka's eyes churned like spirals, trying to drag his opponent's soul into the abyss. He unleashed his ocular power without reservation from the very start. But Takumi was clearly prepared. Relying on the Sharingan's insight, he blocked every attack with ease even while ignoring anything above his opponent's shoulders. Uchiha style, sword flame leap. Takumi flicked his blade upward, parrying Naka's slash. A tongue of crimson fire ignited along the blade, the dancing flame gliding through the air and grazing Naka's nose by a hair's breadth. Naka retreated swiftly. The same sword flame leap lit his sword, the two slashed simultaneously, twin orange-red arcs meeting in midair and erupting into a splash of fiery waves. Fire style, great fireball. The instant he landed, Naka finished his hand seals. A burning fireball spewed forth. While, head-on, a fireball the size of a tavern roared toward him. The two masses collided violently, scorching wind shot upward, forming a towering wall of flame. Not bad at all. Naka chuckled softly. The wall lasted less than 2 seconds before shattering. Takumi's fireball rampaged like a maddened bull. Naka rolled right to evade. Fire style, flame whirlwind. Takumi's deep shout sent chakra surging, breeze swelling around him. Pushing both palms forward, he launched a massive cone of fire that blazed across the valley in crimson light. "You really do look down on me." Naka remained unmoved, the glare almost devouring his silhouette. Before he could respond, Takumi formed seals again, gathering all his fire chakra in his throat. Fire style, dragon flame singing technique. Pressing a single hand to his lips, he spewed 4 colossal dragon heads of flame. They tore through the sea of fire, merging with the whirlwind, raising a sky-piercing tornado like 4 meteors crashing down upon Naka below. Having done all this, Takumi showed signs of exhaustion. His steps faltered, nearly toppling, sweat beading on his brow in the firelight. Obviously, that last technique had nearly drained all his chakra. His Sharingan narrowed to pinpoints as he watched Naka swallowed by the inferno, the figure fading inch by inch. Suddenly, a lightly mocking voice drifted out of the flames. "That's your full power?" To Takumi's horror, Naka strolled out of the blaze, steps leisurely. His twin pupils turned quietly, a sacred aura plating his body. Any flame that touched him snuffed out instantly, dissolving into pure azure chakra that scattered to the winds. "My ocular jutsu nullifies all ninjutsu. It reverts any chakra-based technique to its original state." The sea of fire parted as if opening a path for him. A vicious smile tugged at Naka's lips, gripping his sword one-handed, He stomped the ground hard. The blade flashed toward Takumi, the killing intent ice cold. But Takumi had lost all strength. Along with it, his fighting spirit and pride had been shattered by those beautiful eyes. Even if I used that jutsu, it would be pointless. At that moment a faint drawing sound rang out. A streak of steel shot from the side, with a clang, sparks scattered over Takumi's head. Nori had activated her Sharingan, firmly parrying Naka's long sword. "That's enough," she said coldly. Naka met her detached gaze, his own darkened, lips taut with a trace of savagery, killing intent undiminished. Yet it quickly receded, like a beast sheathing its fangs. Lifting his sword, he shrugged. "Fine. As agreed. Maim, not kill." Only then did Nori look at Takumi, gaze aloof from above. "The match is decided. You've lost." Takumi's lips trembled. Not until the two of them left the canyon and the breeze swept over him did a chill jolt him awake. Damn. 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 What is this? Charity? What do you take my dignity for? Is this your scheme? Shatter all my pride and then bestow false mercy? I don't need your pity. Nori Uchiha, you're 100 times worse than Naka. He stared hard at their retreating figures, eyes nearly cracking, a raging fire igniting in his gaze. The seed called revenge had already taken root deep within his heart. Chapter 36, Turning Point. 10 kilometers above the ground, boundless winds raged and spiraled. The sky was a deep, ocean-like blue. Looking down through wisps of white cloud, the vast land stretched unending, mountains and rivers linked to one another, outlining a clear map. In the afternoon the sun was sinking westward. Warm light spilled out, coating the world in a soft, golden glaze. From this vantage, the continent felt even more distant, as if one could simply open a hand and clasp the whole world within it. Suddenly, one point in the sky blurred. Centered on that spot, several meters of space distorted, countless tiny rectangular facets flipped outward like mirrors, revealing a pitch-black opening. It was dark and bottomless, as though connected to an abyss without end. A foot stepped out of the hole. Belonging to a man in pure white robes, divine in appearance. Unlike normal humans, his skin was snow-pale and his frame tall and slender. Mid-length azure hair was tied in a ponytail, and two bony horns, like a forehead protector, spanned his brow. Most striking, though, were his eyes. They were immaculate white. Literally immaculate, with almost no visible pupils and a jade-like sheen over the whole surface. He carried a long, thin red fishing rod and a matching creel at his waist. His aura was ethereal, his posture languid. Yet the faint mystique of his arrival was wiped clean the moment his expression changed. He closed his eyes, inhaled the air with satisfaction, then flung them open in manic delight, letting out a crazed, triumphant laugh. Ha 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 ha. I don't know what that guy did at the end, but it clearly failed. Bloody bind still brought me back. Realizing his laughter was too unrestrained, he covered his face, the grin still leaked through his fingers. Good, good. Going up against a note Satsuki. You're still far too green. Veins bulged across his face, and new Tomoe-like lines formed around his Byakugan. Gazing down, his eyes seemed to pierce the heavens. With a touch of madness he sneered. Kamie Uchiha, I'm back. I'm coming to kill you right now. No, no. He froze, muttering like a lunatic. Don't be reckless. The image of that god-demon silhouette flashed in his mind, sending an involuntary shiver through him. Even if he's a brat now, caution is vital. To be safe, I should first gather the 9-tailed beasts, refine them into pills, swallow them. Then my chances will be higher. Ha ha ha, yes, that's the plan. On the other side of the globe, Kamie, eating at the base, suddenly sneezed. With your constitution, you can still catch a chill? Across the table, Madara Uchiha pulled out a silk handkerchief and quietly wiped his face. Hikari also produced a handkerchief, this one to dab out Kamie's lapel. She reached out a soft jade hand and felt his forehead. Cut it out. Kamie smiled gently, seizing the chance to clasp her small hand in his. In front of old man Madara, Hikari grew flustered, yanking her hand back, cheeks flushing red. It's not a cold. I suddenly felt someone's gaze on me. Creepy. Kamie frowned, puzzled. Maybe. Someone out there wants me dead? Plenty of people want you dead. Madara said, lifting a bite of food with a look of complete indifference. No, weaklings wouldn't trigger this feeling. By rights, those who can threaten me now are few and far between. Kamie paused mid-bite, brow furrowing in thought. This baseless premonition was nothing he could ignore, he took it very seriously. Could Black Zetsu be plotting against me? I'm on guard, that thing has no opening. Or maybe. Otsutsuki Ishiki coming after me? Makes even less sense. I'm not an Otsutsuki. He can't feed me to the god tree or take my body. No motive. Then perhaps. The Sage of Six Paths? At that thought Kamiyane tensed. That geezer has lingered in the Pure Land for 1,000 years, who knows what scheme he's brewing. Kamiyane knew well the sage could influence the living world. His methods are unknown. Facing him rashly isn't guaranteed victory. Kamiyane mulled it over and over, finding no answer, and felt somewhat vexed. A true strong man faces everything with courage, even under pressure he remains elegant. Madara said lightly. Kamiyane looked up in surprise, caught the reassuring glint in Madara's eyes, and shook his head with a smile. Yes, Lord Madara is right. He raised his cup, drained the tea, and set it down, composure restored. Speaking of which, Lord Madara, how is the yin-yang fusion progressing? Any sign of the eye opening lately? He suddenly asked. Madara shook his head and pulled his collar aside. The old suture had turned completely pale, as though something were slowly growing there. The fusion hasn't ceased for more than a decade. I don't know when the eye will finally open, but... Madara smiled calmly. That itself is a form of training. We're enlightened. Kamiyane and Hikari answered, identical admiration in their eyes. When I master the creation of all things, we shall build the world's ultimate peace with our own hands. They nodded together, yet Kamiyane pressed his lips, knowing the truth. He doubted Infinite Tsukahime could save the world. Not unless every external threat was wiped out. Every Otsutsuki driven away without exception. He hesitated, unsure how Madara would react if told this truth. Nor did he know how to broach it. Hey, you two. Madara suddenly said, making Kamiyane and Hikari start. His tone rose and fell, clearly choosing his words. Since you've confirmed your relationship, stop acting so shy. As if I were some outsider. Huh? Eh? Kamiyane and Hikari exchanged a glance. Old man Madara's remark was beyond their expectations. After a moment's hesitation, Kamiyane spoke first, clearing his throat. Lord Madara, how? How did you know? I'm blind in one eye, not both. Madara sighed. Your looks, your little gestures. The air between you reeks of romance. You really thought I wouldn't notice? Kamiyane scratched his head with a sheepish grin, while the usually cool Hikari turned into a steaming kettle. She cupped her now ripe cheeks, shy eyes darting everywhere, as though being exposed by Madara was mortifying. Kamiyane, however, kept his composure. He grabbed Hikari's small hand outright and placed it on the table. Lord Madara, I've liked her for a very long time. He said softly. Me too. Hikari whispered like a mosquito. Ha! Madara chuckled in exasperation. Do you two know how long I've waited for this day? Huh? Huh what? Madara laughed heartily, eyes full of satisfaction. So long as you're together, the Uchiha will flourish, and this road to peace will never be lonely. Chapter 37, Intense Battle in the Woods outside Hidden Leaf Village. On a park bench, Nyan, Garito, and Orochimaru were resting after training. Suddenly, a hurried figure ran from a distance, leaping a few times before stopping in front of the bench. Garito, what are you still doing here? Your sister is looking for you. My sister is looking for me? Garito pointed at himself, puzzled. The person in front was a member of the security team that Garito had seen a few times before, but he found it strange. No matter how busy she was, his sister wouldn't use the security team's resources for personal errands, especially not for something minor like looking for him. Yes, it's urgent. The security team member said. If that's the case, let us accompany you. Nyan said as he stood up first. The security team member suddenly raised his hand. Wait, Captain Nori specifically said to only bring Garito. A hint of skepticism flashed in Orochimaru's vertical pupils as he also stood up. Given our relationship with Nori, she wouldn't mind if we all went. Well, it seems like she wants to have some kind of secret talk between siblings. Anyway, she mentioned that Garito should go alone. The security team member scratched his head, stammering. The three exchanged glances and saw the hesitation in each other's eyes. Garito blinked. If that's the case, then I'll go with you. Nyan and Orochimaru received his signaling gaze and silently sat back down on the bench. Then follow me, and don't keep Captain Nori waiting. The security team member sighed in relief and led Garito away, heading towards the Uchiha clan compound. The two traversed the shaded pathway, moving through layers of trees, with the scenery flying by on both sides, soon stopping at a clearing. Garito slightly lifted his head and indeed spotted a familiar figure with flowing purple hair beside a large rock. Sister, you're looking for me? Garito walked over, casually asking. Nori turned around, her smile radiant. Yes, this matter requires you. Sister, why have you become so distant? Just tell me what you want directly. Garito chuckled, opening his arms to rush over and hug his sister's arm. Honestly. Suddenly, a sharper light flashed in his eyes. Grabbing his sister's sleeve, a kunai swiftly sliced upward. In a panic, Nori had no time to dodge and could only lean back as far as she could. There was a tearing sound as his action split her sleeve, leaving a deep gash that drew blood. "Damn it, you little brat." Nori clutched her arm, blood dripping down, and her delicate, gentle face turned fierce. "How did you discover my identity? I never call her sister, and she wouldn't allow me to act too intimate with her." Garrido spoke expressionlessly, his eyes shadowed with rage. "And you're not allowed to speak to me with her face." With his black hair flowing, revealing a pair of furious eyes, he swung his arm fiercely, sending dozens of shurikens forming a sharp net toward Nori. With a loud bang, Nori transformed amidst the dispersing white smoke into a grim-looking middle-aged man. He wielded kunai, intercepting the shuriken amidst the clinking sounds, and quickly retreated more than 10 meters. Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha. Garrido furrowed his brow, but the anger in his eyes didn't diminish in the slightest. "I planned to take you out directly, but I didn't expect you to be so cautious, little brat. Then I guess it's time to stretch my muscles a bit." Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha rolled up his sleeves, shaking his wrist to flick off the blood on his arm. "I suppose my presence here isn't necessary anymore?" The security team member suddenly spoke. Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha waved his hand. "Leave. This matter is known to heaven and earth, and you know it." "What about him?" The security team member hesitated, glancing at Garrido. "Don't worry, he'll be dead soon enough." Hidden Waterfall Village let out a sinister laugh. "My sister, Hana Uchiha, you'll let her go, right?" The security team member said tentatively, sounding timid. "Tomorrow night at midnight, behind the shrine, bring her." Hidden Waterfall Village replied impatiently. "Understood." The security team member sighed with relief, but as he met Garrido's gaze, he averted his eyes, not even saying sorry, and hurriedly left. Garrido's voice lowered, coldly stating, "If I were you, I'd leave him here until he kills me before releasing his sister. After all, you're already a scum, what's the harm in being a little more despicable?" "Oh?" Hidden Waterfall Village took a bit of interest. "I didn't expect you to be so different from your self-righteous sister. Is your whole family this deep-minded?" "Shut up. Don't insult my sister." Garrido yelled, his grip on the kunai tightening, revealing bulging veins as he activated the teleportation jutsu. With a clang, sparks flew. Hidden Waterfall Village quickly blocked his attack with his blade, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "The reason I'm not doing this is simply because you're too weak." He executed a swift kick toward Garrido's abdomen. Garrido immediately raised his arm to block it. Though he deflected it in time, he was still sent flying back. "Conceited fool, no wonder you lost to Naka." Garrido rolled a few times to reduce the impact, rubbed his aching arm, and slowly got to his feet. Hidden Waterfall Village's body trembled, instinctively activating his Sharingan. "What did you just say?" "I said, you're just an arrogant pig." Garrido laughed lightly. Just then, two figures seemed to descend like divine soldiers, landing beside Garrido. Orochimaru's voice sounded hoarse. "We've called for help, they'll arrive here soon. Before that, we won't let you succeed." Nyan flexed his wrist. Garrido drew his short sword. "Brothers, you know how to deal with the Sharingan, right?" "Got it." "Don't look into his eyes." Orochimaru licked his lips. "Let's go all out." "Oh." The three of them charged simultaneously, attacking from 3 directions. "Brat. Don't look down on others." Hidden Waterfall Village shouted angrily, quickly forming hand seals. Fire style, blazing meteor. He unleashed a barrage of fireballs trailing long tails, like a rapid-fire cannon. The 3 figures darted away, evading the attack, but the flaming projectiles struck the ground violently, severing and igniting large trees. Although the 3 evaded the flames, Hidden Waterfall Village had regained the opportunity to counterattack. Wind style, gale palm. Orochimaru pressed his hands together, sending countless gusts spiraling out as he struck, dissipating the fireballs headed toward Garrido. At that moment, Garrido finished his hand seals, flinging shurikens. Fire style, phoenix flower chloride. The swirling shurikens mixed with intense heat fell like blooming flowers toward Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha. "Is this the extent of your abilities?" Hidden Waterfall Village clapped his hands together, fiery red flames swirled out, forming a massive tornado that melted all the shurikens into molten metal. "Die!" The fire tornado surged toward them. Orochimaru's eyes widened as he stepped in front of Garrido, throwing 3 explosive tag kunai. Fire style, explosive tag kunai, shadow clone technique. A white flame spread out, and within an instant, the 3 kunai separated and morphed, 1 into 3, and 3 into 9, surging forward and colliding with the fire tornado, causing a tremendous explosion. A violent wind erupted, tearing the fire tornado apart, sending countless flames shooting in all directions. Garito pulled Orochimaru's body close, trying to shield him from the flames. Idiot. Orochimaru gritted his teeth and formed hand signs, using his still rough earth style. A wall of earth erupted from the ground. Earth style wall. The fiery waves surged, casting the world beyond the wall in crimson. Under the heat and impact, the earthen wall quickly cracked and collapsed. This technique was incredibly powerful, surpassing their ability to cope. At a crucial moment, Nyan Uchiha, who had been hiding and waiting for the right opportunity, sighed heavily. He rolled forward to face the two, crossing his hands before swiftly pulling apart to form the tiger seal. Wood-locking wall. As the dirt and stone shifted, crimson wooden pillars shot up, creating a solid arch that firmly stood before the three just as the flames charged toward them. The flames scattered like raindrops, but the trio behind the wooden barrier emerged unscathed, with the fire upon the wood slowly extinguishing as if absorbed by the timber. What? Hidden Waterfall Village's eyes bulged. What was he seeing? Wood style? Chapter 38, Garito's Tragedy. Are you hurt? Nyan reached out his hand, pulling up both Garito and Orochimaru. Orochimaru frowned slightly. Do you know this will expose us? There are ninjas from the village hurrying over. Nyan shook his head helplessly. There was no other way. I'd rather not see two roasted lambs. Garito looked at Nyan, his gaze filled with guilt. Don't blame yourself, this was part of my plan. Nyan said softly. Plan? Nyan turned his gaze to Orochimaru. You already know the location of the treasure you mentioned, right? You just need the right opportunity, and I'll create that opportunity for you. Orochimaru's pupils widened in shock. Nyan, you. Before Nyan could reply, Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha's furious voice rang out from beyond the wooden barrier. Damn you little brat. You think I'll just die quietly? So what if it's wood style? No matter what tricks you have up your sleeve, you will die here today. Garito Uchiha, as long as I kill you, your horse-sister will learn what happens when you recklessly choose a side. Hidden Waterfall Village joined his hands together. Fire style, Great Fire Dragon technique. A wave of heat gathered, and the temperature in the air soared as a massive fire dragon burst through the sky. Scatter. The three immediately dispersed. The wooden barrier only held for 2 seconds before the fire dragon smashed through, scorching the ground with black charred trails. Fire style, Ash Cloud technique. Garito gathered his breath and unleashed a vast cloud of ash, quickly obscuring the forest within a radius of several dozen meters, blocking everyone's vision. Except for wood style, adamantine summoning wood. Nyan quickly pinpointed Hidden Waterfall Village's position, moving effortlessly even amid the darkness of the ash. He pressed his hands onto the ground, and several gigantic wooden columns burst forth, resembling flexible tentacles reaching for Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha. Hidden Waterfall Village was no ordinary foe. Despite the dust affecting him, he could still discern the faint traces with the keen perception provided by his Sharingan. As the wooden pillars approached, he reacted quickly, leaping high into the air. A cluster of flames ignited along his blade. With several swift slashes, 4 fiery strikes heavily cleaved the tentacles below, breaking them into splintered wood. He began to descend rapidly, delivering a heavy downward slash aimed at Nyan's head. Wind style, Great Breakthrough. Fire style, Great Fireball. Garito and Orochimaru combined their fire style techniques. The whirlwind blew away the ash cloud, and the fireball soared through the air, attempting to thwart Hidden Waterfall Village's attack. However, Hidden Waterfall Village flashed a triumphant smile. Instead of dodging, he reversed his blade, plunging it into the fireball. Secret technique, Sword-Guided Flame. As chakra flowed into the blade, Hidden Waterfall Village's sword generated a pulling force that redirected the high temperature and heat away from its original path, sending it hurtling toward Nyan. Wood style, Wood-Locking Wall. The fireball crashed into the wooden barrier, causing a cascading heat wave. In the blink of an eye, Hidden Waterfall Village's bear-like attack followed, cleaving through the barrier and stabbing directly into Nyan's chest, pinning him to the ground. Die. Hidden Waterfall Village twisted the blade viciously, flames igniting across Nyan's body. Suddenly, his fierce expression froze, for the Nyan before him had transformed into a lifelike wooden sculpture without him knowing. Wind style, Wind Rope. A rushing gale manifested, forming invisible ropes that bound Hidden Waterfall Village's limbs, leaving him unable to break free. It's over. A whistling wind approached from behind. Garito gripped his blade with a cold gleam slicing across Hidden Waterfall Village's throat. SHH. Blood gushed forth like a fountain. Hidden Waterfall Village clutched his throat with both hands, but the searing blood continued to pour from his fingertips, his vitality swiftly draining away. His eyes widened in disbelief as he realized he had been killed by 3 little brats. It seemed he wanted to say something, yet his vocal cords were destroyed, blood choking his throat, and he could only emit a death rattle. As the wind ropes disintegrated, he collapsed to the ground, his spasming body finally at rest. It was over. Nyan stepped out from behind a tree, exchanging glances with the two, a smile of relief painted across his face. We won? Orochimaru sat down heavily on the ground, looking exhausted. We won. Garito finally breathed a sigh of relief. Danger averted. But he felt like all his strength had drained away. He stood blankly, the tender smile of Naori flashing through his mind. It's better not to tell sister about this, otherwise, she will surely blame herself. PSST. A knife pierced through Garito's chest, twisting viciously, blood spilling profusely, staining his front. I said I must kill you today. Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha's voice floated in from behind him. His body leaned forward, his original Sharingan head transformed into a mixed red and white eye. Garito stared blankly at the knife tip protruding from his chest, the overwhelming pain paling his complexion, as his heart was utterly destroyed, and his life force rapidly drained away. In an instant, his body lost all support, slowly collapsing. He raised his hand as if to grasp the blade, but he lacked the strength. His vision suddenly darkened, and everything faded into silence. Sister, He died. Orochimaru stood dazed, as if he were in a dream, struggling to comprehend the reality. Hidden Waterfall Village raised his long knife, seemingly wanting to finish off Orochimaru, but a figure suddenly lunged from the side like a frenzied wolf, stabbing a wooden spike deep into his neck. Hidden Waterfall Village instinctively tried to pull out the wooden spike, but it began to grow wildly within his flesh, branches sprouting quickly until they pierced through his head, bloodily emerging from his ear. In his final moments, he desperately turned his head at that moment before his lone eye lost its sight, catching a glimpse of an enraged, fierce face, along with bloodshot pupils. Two pitch-black tomoe were slowly spinning in his crimson pupils. Nyan opened his mouth wide, seemingly screaming in anguish, but Hidden Waterfall Village could not hear. As a wooden spike ruptured his eyeball from within, his world fell into darkness. In Orochimaru's astonished gaze, Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha's head was violently crushed by the rapidly growing wooden spikes, becoming a headless corpse. Dead beyond recovery. Nyan howled at the sky, inexhaustible sorrow bursting forth. Even having slain the enemy, it did not bring back Garito's life. His friend, his only friend in the clan, also his first friend. Just like that, he died. A gentle breeze blew, slightly dispersing the heat in the air, but for some reason, both Orochimaru and Nyan felt a chilling tremor coursing through them. Soon, shadows filled the surroundings as Hidden Leaf Village's ninjas finally arrived late after the battle. They walked through the charred forest, gazing at the headless corpse killed by the wooden spike and a boy lying in a pool of blood, all silently gasping in shock at the brutality of the battle. A familiar figure pushed through the crowd, stumbling toward the center of the battlefield. She disregarded the blood and dirt, cradling the dead boy in her arms, carefully pressing against his chest. She recognized the corpse of Hidden Waterfall Village Uchiha, and despite the brutal dismemberment, she still recognized him. Naori Uchiha tightly embraced Garito's lifeless body, tears silently streaming down her face. Chapter 39, Urashiki appears. The Hidden Leaf Village cemetery was silent, the autumn wind feeling especially bleak today. Clad in solemn black, members of the Uchiha clan stood in silent tribute around a gravestone. A lone crow circled high above, its hoarse caws echoing in the desolate quiet. This was Garito's funeral. At the very front stood Naori Uchiha, solitary and forlorn, her eyes rimmed with red. Her heart felt as if it had been soaked through with ice water, utterly devoid of warmth. You were always so sincere and passionate. Your warmth will be passed on, warming every corner of the village. As Nakuchiha spoke the heavy eulogy, people came forward one by one to place white flowers before the grave, mourning the youth who had burned as brilliantly and briefly as a firework. When the funeral ended, the crowd dispersed with heavy hearts, leaving only three figures in the biting autumn wind. Orochimaru's gaze was complex. He wasn't looking at the gravestone, but staring intently at Naori's back. The breeze lifted his long hair but could not smooth the faint trace of pity etched between his brows. The image of Garito's heart being pierced and Takumi Uchiha's head being blown apart replayed in his mind like a slideshow. Life is such a fragile thing. Nyan Uchiha stood quietly beside Orochimaru, shoulder to shoulder. He was covered in filthy bloodstains, not yet having had time to change. His face was a rare mask of impassivity, as if his rage had been fully vented, his scarlet pupils frozen like ice. Naori's voice came from ahead, ethereal and laced with a chilling coldness. Tell me, how did he die? She turned her head. Crimson blood trickled from her eyes as her Sharingan warped and twitched. The three tomoe merged and elongated, blooming into a red, three-leaf clover. A pair of clear, beautiful Mangekyo Sharingan appeared before them. Orochimaru's heart jolted. Pinned by that gaze, he felt as if he'd been plunged into an ice cellar, a bone-deep chill seeping through every pore. Nyan, by contrast, was much calmer. He placed a hand on Orochimaru's shoulder and began to speak. We were winning, but the situation reversed in an instant. The already dead Takumi Uchiha appeared behind Kirito like a ghost. I gave it my all, but I couldn't stop it. But in the second before I finished Takumi off, I saw he was blind in one eye. Izanagi. Was it? Nori fell silent. In an instant, her eyes filled with a storm of emotions. Rage, guilt, and sorrow. Finally, she slowly closed them, as if to sever everything. When she opened them again, all emotion had vanished, replaced by a profound resolve. I must end this civil war, she vowed silently. Nyan winked at Orochimaru, his lips moving as he whispered. Calm down. Senpai must have his reasons for doing this. Nori's ear twitched. She turned, puzzled. Senpai? What senpai? Orochimaru ventured tentatively. We were just saying, it would have been good if our senior was here. If it were him, he could have easily prevented all this. Nori walked over slowly, her pupils deep and dark. Great power is often accompanied by unforgettable pain. She looked up, her gaze drifting into reminiscence as the smiling face of a handsome young man inexplicably crossed her mind. None of us can know what pain he endured back then, or who the powerful enemy he faced was. Thousands of miles away, two figures faced each other in midair. One, in robes whiter than snow, stared with a pair of blood-red Rinnegan with 6 tomoe. One of his horns was half-shattered, but his face showed no trace of distress. The long, thin red fishing rod in his hand glinted with a dangerous light. The other had flowing black hair and stood as firm as a mountain. His pair of scarlet eyes shone like lustrous gems, swirling with a magnificent pattern. Mikagami was already unsheathed, a faint cyan sharpness flowing along its blade. Accept your fate, Kamien Uchiha. As you are now, you can't even hurt me. Otsutsuki Urashiki declared. Go to hell, Kamien Uchiha. In this era, all you can do is wait obediently for death. Kamien mimicked a certain arrogant, domineering line in a light tone. The first time we met, that's what you said, wasn't it? I really do hate you, in the future and now. Urashiki heard the mockery in his words, and the veins on the hand gripping the fishing rod bulged. Kamien raised Shimatsuki no Ishin. Its tip pointing to the sky, its cold blade facing Urashiki. Try calling yourself a god in front of me again. 2 hours earlier, within a hidden leaf village. While Nyan, Orochimaru, and Kirito fought Takumi Uchiha in the woods, Kamien watched coldly from the shadows. Beside him stood the tall, elegant Hikari Uchiha and an old hidden leaf village acquaintance, Pikazu. In truth, his attention to Nyan was far deeper than he let on. The ninja cats scattered throughout Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha grounds brought him the latest intelligence daily. Thus, he was well aware of the Uchiha clan's recent civil war and the treacherous atmosphere. He had come today precisely because he had predicted someone might make a move against Nori soon. In Kamien's eyes, Nori had always been a kind-hearted little girl. Though she was now the captain of the Hidden Leaf Village police force, at her core, she was still gentle and merciful. Her alliance with Nakuchiha, using her accumulated connections to support his bid for leadership, was an incredibly foolish act in Kamien's view. While this move could quell the infighting in the shortest amount of time, it didn't change the fundamental nature of the Uchiha killing each other. Her compassion would not bring about unity, instead, it would intensify the conflict and plant the seeds of hatred. She had underestimated the deceitfulness of the human heart and overlooked the cruel side of human nature. Sooner or later, this would bring harm to those around her. However, unless his own interests were at stake, Kamien was unwilling to interfere in the fates of others. He would only choose to intervene if Nyan Uchiha and the others were in mortal danger. When he personally witnessed Kirito being backstabbed and killed by Takumi Uchiha using Izanagi, he finally let out a soft sigh. After I revive him, I'll take him to the Land of Iron for now. Don't let him return until the Uchiha civil war is over. Kamien said quietly. Pikazu nodded, his voice muffled. It's none of my business, but I have to ask, why must he be taken away? You want him to die a second time? Hikari glanced at Pikazu. We're here today, but we might not be tomorrow. As long as the crisis isn't resolved, he will always be in danger. She looked at Kamien. What are your plans for Kirito? He's not cut out to be a ninja. He can live out his days as a wealthy merchant in the Land of Iron. Kamien replied, then activated his Mangekyo Sharingan. His right eye focused on the figure in the pool of blood, the pattern gently spinning. Under the influence of some mysterious power, Kirito, whose life signs had completely vanished, regained a faint heartbeat. His wound healed instantly from the inside out, and the pool of blood flowed back into every vessel in his body, as if it had never been there. Kakazu, let's go get Kirito. In that instant, Kamien's pupils contracted violently. As if sensing something, he shoved Hikari aside. Swoosh! A crimson streak shot between them. Hikari instantly activated her Sharingan. She saw it clearly. It was a slender fishhook. If Kamien hadn't reacted in time, both of them would have been pierced by that damn thing. Behind them, space folded outward like a piece of paper, revealing a dark opening. A tall, slender figure flashed out of the hole. His skin was pale, his eyes as empty and translucent as jade. Perhaps because his sneak attack had failed, a trace of regret still lingered on his face. Chapter 40, My eyes can see through hearts. Deep in the forest near the Uchiha clan's territory in Hidden Leaf Village, Kamien steadied himself the moment he pushed Hikari aside. With a swift motion, planting his foot, twisting his waist, and lashing out with a whip-like kick. His attack landed squarely on the ambusher, only to be blocked by the raised fishing rod. A dull thud echoed as a visible shockwave rippled through the air, sending the figure flying backward like a deflated ball, arcing high into the sky. Who was that? Hikari frowned, her expression unusually grave. She had sensed an immense threat from that fishhook. Kamien remained silent, his gaze fixed on the sky, his eyes clouded with confusion and contemplation. Who was he? Those eyes. A Hyuga? Kakazu tensed, ready to fight. He had never seen Kamien look so unsettled. Then, a voice drifted down from above, distant yet clear. I am a traveler from beyond the stars, a servant of the divine tree, the embodiment of wisdom and power, an existence that transcends death itself. You may call me Otsutsuki Yorashiki. Yorashiki descended slowly, floating midair with his fishing rod resting on his shoulder. His tone was polite, but his eyes radiated an aloof arrogance. Or, if you prefer, you may address me as a god. A spark of recognition flashed in Kamien's mind. Otsutsuki Yorashiki. A boss who appeared in the Boruto era of the original timeline, alongside Otsutsuki Momoshiki and Otsutsuki Kanshiki. A pure-blooded Otsutsuki, wielding abilities far beyond KK Genkai and KK Toda. His eyes could shift between the Byakugan and the Rinnegan at will. His power defied conventional shinobi metrics. Like his kin, his goal was to harvest chakra from Jinchuriki, plant a new divine tree, and reap its fruit. After Momoshiki and Kanshiki fell in battle, Yorashiki, who had avoided the conflict, remained on Earth to continue their mission. Collecting all tailed beast chakra and refining it into pills. These aliens didn't need to train like mortals. By consuming these pills and the divine tree's fruit, they could evolve endlessly, surpassing all limits. Learning from his predecessor's mistakes, Yorashiki avoided direct confrontation. Instead, he used the Otsutsuki artifact Steal Time-Space to travel back in time, aiming to steal the Nine Tails chakra from the young Naruto. But in the end, he was outmaneuvered and slain by Naruto, his son, Jiraiya, and Sasuke Uchiha. Wait. Is this the Yorashiki who time-traveled? But this is way too early. At least 30 years ahead of schedule. Kamien's mind raced. He stared at the figure blotting out the sun, not with fear, but deep puzzlement. The Otsutsuki's appearance was unexpected. It could derail his plans entirely. Did he get smarter? Did he come here to gather the tailed beasts before Naruto was even born? Or? Yorashiki smirked, his gaze filled with divine disdain, as if looking down on insects. What's wrong? Struck dumb in the presence of a god? Kamien scoffed and suddenly spoke, Otsutsuki Yorashiki. The moment the name left his lips, Yorashiki's body twitched imperceptibly midair. Though he quickly masked it, Kamien caught the reaction. What of it? Yorashiki regained his composure, maintaining his flippant demeanor. Stay calm. He's not a child now, but he doesn't have those eyes. Or that damn technique. Kamien grinned. Shouldn't you be busy collecting tailed beasts? Why waste time attacking me? I'm naturally. Huh? Yorashiki blinked, caught off guard. How do you know I'm after the tailed beasts? Kamien gestured to his eyes, feigning solemnity. My eyes can see through hearts. Yorashiki hesitated, then burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. Kamien Uchiha, you're as cunning as ever. I've never heard of you having mind-reading powers. So? Kamien's tone turned probing. You've met me before? But I've never seen you. Every moment of my life is etched into my memory. In 30 years of recollection, there's no trace of you. Kamien tapped his temple. If not the past, then it must be the future. He smiled. You're a time traveler, aren't you? The word stunned not just Yorashiki, but Hikari and Kakazu as well. The idea was so fantastical. Utterly unshinobi-like. But this wasn't a guess. Kamiyane had pieced it together from fragments of the original timeline. Yurashiki's reaction confirmed it. The Otsutsuki's expression cycled through shock, disbelief, and finally settled on a manic grin. As expected of the infamous Kamiyane Uchiha. To deduce my origins from just a few words. How boring. I was hoping to toy with you a bit longer. No point hiding it now. He shrugged theatrically. Fine. Kamiyane Uchiha, Hikari Uchiha, and that ugly one. Listen well. I, Otsutsuki Yurashiki, have indeed crossed time itself to be here. And my purpose? To deliver your fated deaths. If I were you, Kamiyane said dryly, I'd lay low first. Gather strength, wait for the right moment. Like collecting the scattered-tailed beasts. Yurashiki's face darkened. That had been his plan. His first target was Hidden Leaf Village, where Kamiyane was least likely to appear in this era. But the moment he arrived, he activated his Byakugan, scanning the village for tailed beasts. Instead, he found him. At first, seeing Kamiyane looking exactly as he did in the future unnerved Yurashiki. He had intended to arrive when Kamiyane was 12. Clearly, something had gone wrong. But when Kamiyane revealed his eternal Mangekyo, Yurashiki relaxed slightly. And when Kamiyane used his time reversal jutsu, Yurashiki couldn't resist. He knew the technique had a 1-second cooldown. The instant after activation was Kamiyane's weakest moment. Abandoning his tailed beast hunt, he teleported behind Kamohike with Yamatsu Hirasaka and struck. Now, faced with Kamiyane's accusation, Yurashiki sneered. That's only because you aren't strong enough to defeat a god. Die, Kamiyane Uchiha. In this era, you're nothing but prey waiting for slaughter.